Chapter 412. 7 Steps. Begin now. You will die if you take another 7 steps. If you don't believe me, you can continue walking. The flower's voice sounded again. Cold sweat instantly trickled down Zhou Wen's forehead. He stood there, unsure if he should continue walking. Logically speaking, truth listener should be able to restrain some evil powers, but there was no invincibility in this world. Zhou Wen still hadn't figured out what kind of evil powers truth listener could restrain. If the flower was just being alarmist, Zhou Wen would naturally be fine if he left. However, what if it was telling the truth? Zhou Wen didn't dare gamble with his life. However, Zhou Wen wasn't willing to be frightened by the flower. He gritted his teeth and continued retreating. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. As he retreated, he looked at the flower on the mountain wall. However, the flower didn't make sound. This made Zhou Wen feel even more uneasy. 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps. Zhou Wen continued walking, but there was no reaction from the truth listener earring. Zhou Wen's heart pounded. Could it really be a trick? Why isn't there any reaction? That was what he thought, but he didn't dare to take the last step. That's right. Zhou Wen was indeed afraid of death. Furthermore, there was no need for him to gamble with his life. Why aren't you walking? You still have 1 step left. Continue walking. The flower finally spoke, but its tone was filled with mockery. We have no feud. Why are you making things difficult for me? If you lack fertilizer, I'll help you find it. If you lack water, I'll help you water it. What do you think? Zhou Wen shouted as he stood there and looked at the flower on the mountain wall. Who wants you to water and fertilize it? The flower said coldly, from now on, I'll ask and you'll answer. If I'm satisfied, I'll spare your life. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead. Even if you die, I'll refine you into lamp oil. With my bad temper, I can't stand being threatened. I'll be leaving. What can you do? Zhou Wen said as he continued walking. However, just as he raised his foot, he felt his head spin and nearly fell to the ground. Alarmed, he hurriedly stopped and didn't really raise his foot to take the step. D***M. How did this happen? Zhou Wen was shocked. He now knew that what Little Blossom had said was most likely true. Why aren't you walking? Keep walking. Where's your bad temper? Little Blossom teased. Zhou Wen thought to himself, there's no need to fight with a flower and lose my life. Even truth listeners' evil nullification life soul is useless. I wonder what the origins of this flower are. I see that you're the only flower growing on the cliff, and you don't have a companion. You must be very lonely and sad. I can't bear to see others sad and suffering, so I'll accompany you for a chat. However, since it's a chat, you can't just ask me questions. I have to ask you some questions, don't you think? Zhou Wen bargained. Xiao Hua didn't refute him. Instead, he asked, what's your name? Zhou Wen's heart skipped a beat. He remembered that in myths and legends, there was an ability that could imprison a person just by calling their name. He was momentarily unsure if he should answer. Why are you so sentimental? Just die, Little Flower said impatiently. My name is Zhou Wen. What's your name? Zhou Wen knew that it was useless even if he used a fake name. This was because a name was just a code name. The name he used represented him regardless of whether it was real or fake. If the other party really had that ability, using a fake name would be equally effective. Just call me the Arch. Xiao Hua paused before continuing. What are you doing here? Would you believe me if I said I'm here for a tour? Although Zhou Wen said that, he was cursing inwardly. A flower wants to be called an arch? Are you crazy? However, the flower giggled. I believe you. Why wouldn't I believe you? Since you're here for a tour, I'll do a good deed and take you on a tour of Chess Mountain. Following the flower's voice, cracks appeared on the mountain wall where the flower was rooted. Furthermore, the cracks were gradually expanding, causing Chess Mountain to tremble slightly as though the mountain was about to crack. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'm afraid of heights and don't like climbing mountains. I'll just watch the river scenery from here. The cold sweat on Zhou Wen's forehead increased. Only then did the trembling mountain calm down. The flower mocked. Are you really not going to come in and take a look? There's really no need. Zhou Wen hurriedly waved his hand and changed the topic. Are there many dimensional creatures in Chess Mountain? Are there any at the mythical stage? Of course, and there are many. Which one do you want to see? I can get them to come out and meet you, the flower said with a smile. There's no need. I'm just asking. Zhou suspected that the flower was bluffing him when he saw how arrogant it was. It was just a flower, and it grew on a mountain wall that had suffered from all sorts of wind and rain. However, its tone made it seem as though it was the king of Chess Mountain. It made Zhou very suspicious. Are there many humans with your strength now? The flower asked. There should be quite a few. Zhou thought for a moment and felt that it wasn't a small number. In Jing Daoxian's era, the dimensional storms had just descended not long ago. There were very few epic experts. After decades, epic experts were no longer as rare as before. What's the human population now? The flower continued asking. It shouldn't be 10 billion, right? Zhou answered after some thought. This wasn't a secret, so there was nothing to hide. Then, there should be a few 100 million at your level, right? The flower said after some thought. I don't think there are that many, right? Zhou found it difficult to speak when he heard the flower say that. This was because the actual situation was too different from the flower's guess. Although Zhou didn't know how many epic experts there were in the Federation, he estimated that it would be difficult for it to reach 6 digits. It would be pretty good if there were tens of thousands. Tens of millions, the flower guessed again. A little less. Zhou had no choice but to say, only a few million? Are humans so weak these days? There are so few people at your level? The flower said in disbelief. More or less. I'm basically considered relatively weak. What else could Zhou say? He couldn't tell the flower that the number it guessed would be reduced by 100 times, right? Zhou thought for a moment and asked, You are very familiar with Chess Mountain, right? Have you seen a pattern here? It's a drawing of a tiny hand. The tiny hand might be holding something. Zhou roughly described the tiny palm symbol. Since he couldn't leave now, he might as well take the opportunity to probe for information. Perhaps the flower really knew. There's indeed such a pattern. It's at the top of Chess Mountain. I wonder who carved it. I hate it when I see it. Why are you looking for it? The flower asked. Chapter 413. Zhou was overjoyed when he heard that there was really a tiny palm symbol. However, when he thought about how the tiny palm symbol was at the top of Chess Mountain, he didn't dare go up. He couldn't help but frown again. I've seen similar patterns in other dimensional zones, but I don't know what they mean. Therefore, I've been doing research and want to take a picture. By the way, do you know what the tiny palm symbol represents? Zhou said half-truthfully. How would I know? I don't know who carved it out of boredom. It's easy if you want to see it. You can naturally see it when you climb to the top of the mountain, the flower said. Forget it. I don't really want to see it. Zhou rejected it without a thought when he heard that he had to climb to the top of the mountain. There were countless terrifying creatures in Chess Mountain. Who knew if he could come out after climbing up? To his surprise, the flower laughed. You don't want to climb, but I'll make you do it. From now on, if you don't climb to the top of the mountain in 2 hours, your eyes will go blind. Previously, Zhou hadn't paid much attention to the flower when it said that he would die in 7 steps. However, this time he saw it clearly. Just as the flower's voice faded, one of its petals withered and dissipated in the air as though it had vanished into thin air. Zhou didn't feel anything, nor did the truth listener earring react. However, he knew that he had probably been hit. What's the background of this flower? Why is its power so strange? Zhou looked at the flower and asked, You just said that I would die if I take 7 steps, but now you want me to climb up the mountain in 2 hours. Isn't this contradictory? The flower said indifferently, Don't worry. The wish power of the first wish has been covered by the second wish. You can go anywhere you want now and won't die again. However, if you don't reach the top of Chess Mountain in 2 hours, you will definitely become blind. Even a mythical primordial energy skill that can revive the dead won't be able to restore your sight. If you don't believe me, feel free to leave this place and give it a try. What are you trying to do? Zhou looked up at the flower on the mountain wall and asked. If he went up Chess Mountain, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return alive. Even being blind was better than being dead. At the very least, he still had the truth listener earring. Even if he was blind, he wouldn't be completely blind. He could use his ears as his eyes, but he wouldn't be able to see the changes in color and light in the future. I don't want to do anything. I just think it's fun. If you don't want to climb the mountain, you can leave now. But if I'm in a bad mood one day and I think about you, I might make a wish to make you a cripple. That would be fun, Little Flower said. Joan stared at the flower and thought to himself, indeed, I shouldn't casually risk my life near dimensional zones. It's better to just game at home. If you want to kill me, just do it. Why go through so much trouble? Joan said as he stared at the flower. If it weren't for your looks, do you think you would still be able to stand and talk to me? Xiao Hua said with disdain. Joan was instantly rendered speechless as he thought, you're a flower. Do you know if humans look good or not? The flower continued, forget it. I'll tell you another secret. There's a treasure at the top of Chess Mountain. If you can climb up, you will have a chance of obtaining that treasure. In your human standards, it's a mythical item. What mythical item is it? Joan asked. You'll know once you climb up. However, I'll give you another hint. Don't think of flying up. Climb up from the mountain wall, or you will definitely die, the flower said. All right, I'll climb. Joan gritted his teeth. He knew that he had offended the flower. Even if he left now, there would probably be endless trouble in the future. He might as well go up and take a look. If there was really a tiny palm symbol there, he could take a picture of it and download it into the game. He could then understand the secrets of Chess Mountain in-game and think of a way to resolve the flower's pestering. Joan walked to the stone wall and reached out to grab a crack in the rock to climb up. The moment he climbed up, he immediately felt that something was amiss. It was as though there was a powerful magnet beneath Chess Mountain that pulled at his body, making him feel much heavier. It was extremely strenuous for him to climb up, just like an ordinary person doing rock climbing. Do you find it very heavy? The flower's voice sounded. Why is this happening? Joan asked as he climbed up. Chess Mountain is a sealed land. Even those perfected immortals don't dare approach it. Only your human body can approach it. You won't be injured by the power of the seal, but you will still be affected, the flower said. Sealed land? Who sealed this place? Joan took the opportunity to gather information. If you can climb to the top of the mountain and see that mythical item, you will naturally be able to guess who it is. If you can't climb up, it's useless telling you. The flower paused before saying, since you have already climbed up, don't think about retreating. Otherwise, you will definitely die. If you don't believe me, look down. Joan looked down and was immediately alarmed. He had only climbed up a few meters, but the bottom had turned into a bottomless abyss. It was as though it led straight to hell. Darn flower, just you wait. When I download the Chess Mountain dungeon and find your flaws in-game, I'll deal with you, Joan thought to himself. He didn't know if it was an illusion or what was going on, but since he had come up, Joan had no intention of retreating. He continued climbing up. The more he climbed up, the heavier his body became. It was as though there were chains hanging from his body. Even with Joan's strong physique, he found it unbearable after climbing a few hundred meters. Thankfully, the chess piece itself wasn't considered tall. It was only about 700 to 800 meters. If it was a mountain that was thousands of meters tall, Joan really doubted that he could climb it. The flower said, I couldn't tell, but your perseverance isn't bad. It's not bad. You've been in Chess Mountain for so long. Do you know who the original owner of Chess Mountain is? Joan didn't forget to fish for information. I'm the owner of Chess Mountain, the flower said with a smile. Joan naturally refused to believe it. According to Ensheng, Chess Mountain might lead to ancient Chaoga. If that was the case, there would definitely be many mythical creatures inside. There would be no lack of famous existences in mythical legends. Even if this flower had a very powerful and strange ability, Joan definitely didn't believe that it was the owner of Chess Mountain. Just as he was about to approach the mountaintop, Joan's truth listener couldn't hear any sounds from the mountaintop. It was as though a mysterious force had blocked off all sounds, preventing Joan from spying on the situation at the mountaintop. Now, Joan felt as though someone was pulling him with a chain. Every step he took required all his strength. He had no choice but to use the ancient sovereign life soul, filling his vital energy with all his might. He felt much more relaxed. The aura of the ancient human sovereign. You cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra? The flower sensed the power of the ancient sovereign life soul and immediately guessed the primordial energy art Zhou when cultivated. Chapter 414. You even know the ancient sovereign sutra? Zhou asked. The flower smiled and said, That's nothing impressive. Why wouldn't I know? However, it's no wonder you were able to climb up Chess Mountain so easily. So you cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra. However, if you cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra, your future path will probably not be that easy. It will be extremely difficult to pass the mythical stage. Why is it difficult to cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra? Are other essence energy arts not difficult to cultivate? Zhouwen's heart stirred as he wanted to obtain some methods to advance to the mythical stage from the flower. To this day, Zhouwen had never heard of a mythical expert among humans. If he could obtain the method to advance to the mythical stage, he might become the first mythical expert among humans. It's also difficult. However, typical essence energy arts conform to the order of the world, but the ancient sovereign sutra destroys the order of the world. The difficulty is naturally greater. Furthermore, the creator of the ancient sovereign sutra, the strongest human emperor, ultimately failed to defy the heavens and change his fate, the flower said. Which human emperor? Zhouwen hurriedly asked. As a human who cultivates the ancient sovereign sutra, you actually don't know the emperor of your race, Swirenchi? The flower was somewhat puzzled. Only then did Zhouwen realize that the ancient sovereign sutra was an essence energy art left behind by Swirenchi, the leader who had brought fire to humanity. Zhouwen originally imagined that the ancient sovereign sutra was discovered on the consort platform and that it might have something to do with it. He never expected it to be Swirenchi's essence energy art. When you say defy the heavens and change fate, do you mean the human emperor ultimately failed to advance to the mythical stage? Zhouwen thought to himself that if that was the case, it would be even more difficult to advance the ancient sovereign sutra to the mythical stage in the future. You can understand it that way, the flower said ambiguously. He didn't continue the topic and said, When you reach the top of the mountain, you will see a stone staircase. Walk along the stone steps. Don't walk randomly, or don't blame me if you die. The tiny palm symbol is engraved on the boulder at the end of the stone steps. What's the mythical item you're talking about? Zhouwen asked. We're almost there. It's on that rock. The flower still didn't answer the question. The peak of the mountain was already in sight. With the augmentation of the ancient sovereign life soul, Zhouwen had to use all his strength to barely climb up. When he finally climbed to the top of the mountain, his fingers trembled as they touched the ground. He looked up at the peak of the mountain and saw a stone staircase leading to the center of the mountain. There was a large black stone that looked like a steamed bun. Zhouwen immediately saw the tiny palm symbol on the stone and couldn't help but be overjoyed. That flower actually didn't lie to me. There really is a tiny palm symbol. Zhouwen stood up and carefully approached the black boulder that was shaped like a bun. As Zhouwen took a few steps, he felt the mysterious phone vibrate in his pocket. He took it out and automatically activated the camera function. He pointed the phone at the black stone, and the phone's lens automatically focused on the small palm symbol on the stone. After snapping a picture, he entered the download interface. What are you holding in your hand? Little Flower's voice came from the mountain wall. Don't you know about cell phones? Zhouwen relaxed a little when he saw that the mountaintop wasn't as dangerous as he imagined. It wasn't as terrifying as the flower had described. There was nothing there. Now that he had downloaded the game dungeon, he could go back and study Little Blossom's weakness. Once he studied it thoroughly, he could deal with it however he wanted. As long as he didn't die here, he still had a chance of turning the tables even if he was blinded by Little Blossom. Wait, if I'm blind, will the blood-colored avatar in the game be blind as well? Zhouwen suddenly thought of this serious problem. He and the blood-colored avatar shared the same point of view. If the blood-colored avatar became blind and he couldn't see the phone screen, wouldn't he be unable to game? What's a cell phone? It doesn't seem to have any primordial energy fluctuations. It doesn't look like a treasure, Little Blossom said. It's not a treasure either. It's just a communication tool that we humans usually use. We can make long-distance calls, and there are also some functions like taking pictures. Everyone has one. Joan tried his best to describe the phone as something more common to prevent Little Blossom from suddenly becoming interested in it. What's taking pictures? Little Blossom asked again. It's taking pictures of the scenery. You can take pictures of people or scenery, Joan said as he put away the mysterious phone. As Joan spoke, he put away the mysterious phone. From the looks of it, the flower seemed interested in the phone. Is that so? Take a picture for me to see, Little Blossom said. Joan was already mentally prepared. He took out the ordinary phone and used it to take a few pictures of his surroundings. This thing is quite interesting. The pictures are actually so realistic. Little Blossom paused for a moment before saying, "How do I make long-distance calls with this thing?" It's very simple. Every phone has a number. As long as you dial this number, you can make a long-distance call with another phone. However, there's no signal here, so there's no way to make a call. Joan looked at the signal indicator on the phone and realized that there was no signal at all. What's a signal? Little Blossom asked again. I'm not too sure either. It roughly means that we humans have built some signal towers. Through those signal towers, we can transmit signals over long distances. There are no signal towers here, so there's no way to use a phone to make a call. Joan didn't understand much either as he gave a general explanation. Understand. You have two phones. Just give me one. You shouldn't have any objections, right? Although Little Blossom was asking, his tone left no room for doubt. Sure, but there's no signal here. It's useless even if you have a phone, right? Besides, you don't have hands. How are you going to use the phone? Joan said, It's none of your business. Just leave the phone on the stone steps, Little Blossom said. Joan deleted his information on the phone. Thankfully, he didn't use it often. There wasn't much personal information on it, so he deleted it in a few seconds. What's the number of this phone and the other phone? Little Blossom asked again. Joan told Little Blossom his phone number and said, I haven't registered a number for my other phone. I'll only have one after I get one back. However, there's communication software inside. I can use it to communicate, but there's no signal here, so the communication software can't be used. It's fine. Tell me how to use it. Little Blossom was very calm. Joan told Little Blossom how to use the communication software. Now that he still wanted to return alive, he agreed to Little Blossom's request. By the way, where's the mythical item you mentioned? Why don't I see it? After Joan said that, Little Blossom said that he understood. He didn't know if he really understood or not. After all, there was no signal here and the phone was useless. It didn't matter if he understood or not, so he couldn't be bothered to say more. Didn't I tell you that it's on that boulder? You'll naturally see it when you go to its side, Little Blossom said. Chapter 4:15. The bun-shaped rock was about a meter tall. When Joan got closer, he could see the top of the rock. In the middle of the rock was a white jade box. Joan saw that there was nothing special about the white jade box, so he asked, Is the mythical item you mentioned in this jade box? Of course it's different. That jade box is a mythical item, the flower said. The jade box is a mythical item? Joan sized it up and didn't see anything special about the jade box. It didn't have any extraordinary luster or mythical runes. It looked like an ordinary box carved from white jade. It was about 1 foot long and 4 fingers wide. The real treasure is right in front of you, but you don't recognize it. You could be considered blind. If it were me back then, I would have dug out your eyes first to prevent myself from getting angry. The flower paused for a moment before continuing. That treasure box is a mythical item of a top mythical expert. It possesses terrifying and boundless power. Even mythical creatures like dragons and phoenixes can't withstand the power of the treasure box. It's because of its suppression that Chess Mountain can't break the restrictions. Do you mean that if I take it away, the seal on Chess Mountain will be removed? Joan asked in surprise. He originally imagined that the flower was trying to trick him into taking away the treasures here to achieve some conspiracy. However, to his surprise, the first thing the flower said was to point out the importance of the jade box. It surprised Joan. The flower said disdainfully, A weak human like you doesn't have the right to take it away. Even a mythical creature needs a special physique to take it out. You're still far from that. After a pause, the flower continued. However, if you can advance to the mythical stage in the future, you can come and give it a try. You cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra, so you might have a chance to take it away. Would I be crazy to take it away and let monsters like you run amok in the world? Zhou thought. The flower seemed to see through Zhou thoughts as it said with a smile. It's only a matter of time before the dimension rules over the land. Even if you don't take it, someone will take it away in the future. This item is a unique treasure even in the dimension. It has killed countless mythical creatures. If you are really that great, pretend that it doesn't exist. Zhou was immediately tempted when he heard that. What the flower said wasn't without reason. If it really came to that, others would benefit if he didn't take it. Although he knew that little flower was trying to seduce him, he would be lying if he said he wasn't tempted. But he couldn't take it. I'll give a try in-game later. If I can take it away in-game, it shouldn't affect the real world, Zhou thought to himself. I've climbed the mountain and taken the things. I've also given you my phone. Can I leave now? Zhou asked. Up to you. The flower had no intention of stopping Zhou. Zhou hurriedly climbed back down the path he had come from. Descending the mountain was more difficult than ascending it. Thankfully, Zhou had cultivated for so many years. Even if he couldn't fly, he was still rather agile. Hey, I'm really leaving, Zhou said as he looked in the direction of the flower when he reached the foot of the mountain, afraid that it would cause trouble again. If you aren't leaving, do you want me to keep you for a meal in Chess Mountain? The flower said coldly. There's no need to stand on ceremony. I'll be leaving first. Call me when I'm free. Zhou hurriedly turned around and left. The flower had an unpredictable personality, so it was best to leave as soon as possible. It won't be too late for me to deal with you when I find your flaws in the game dungeon. After Zhou left Chess Mountain, he took out his phone and saw that the Chess Mountain dungeon had already been downloaded. There was a new game icon on the desktop. The icon was a black mountain with the name Chess Mountain. Zhou rode the mutated stone chi back and clicked open the Chess Mountain dungeon. After entering the game, the blood-colored avatar stood in front of Chess Mountain's mountain wall. On the mountain wall was a tiny flower. Although the cartoonish flower looked somewhat different from the one in real life, he could still vaguely tell that it was the flower Zhou had seen before. Although he was in-game, Zhou held back from attacking the flower because he couldn't die yet. Every 24 hours, he would head to the underground sea and deliver a poison dragon palm to the black dragon, hoping to grind it to death. If a mythical companion beast dropped, he would make a killing. Even without a mythical companion beast, being able to drop an essence energy skill crystal would be a huge harvest. After all, Zhou didn't have the ability to kill mythical creatures. It was too difficult to obtain mythical dimensional crystals. He stood in front of the mountain wall and sized up the flower, but the flower in-game didn't speak like it did in real life. It only grew quietly on the mountain wall. Zhou decided to deal with the flower after he killed the black dragon. Then, he chose to exit the game dungeon. In the dark cave, a seductive woman was chained up by crisscrossing chains. The chains engraved with runes pierced through her bones, locking her in the cave. She couldn't even move. All she could do was sit against the mountain wall. Her neck and limbs were chained up, making it difficult for her to move. At that moment, there was a phone floating in front of the seductive woman. It was the one Zhou had placed on the stone steps. The seductive woman's gaze landed on the phone, but it was as though a pair of invisible hands had grabbed it and quickly operated it. A cell phone is quite interesting. The seductive woman's face gradually revealed a strange smile. When Zhou returned to the encampment, he had finished grinding the dungeons. With nothing else to do, he took out the books from the chaos space to read. Previously, when he fought Jack, he had gained a new understanding of Lost Country. However, it hadn't reached the level where he could advance Lost Country to the evolved stage. Now he could use this period of time to study it and see if he could improve further and make Lost Country an evolved body. A life soul had a certain ability, but how to use the life soul's ability required the owner of a life soul to develop it. Teleportation was only the most basic use of spatial trajectory power. After being inspired by Jack, Zhou thought of another way to use spatial trajectories, trajectory control. After an ordinary person's strength was used, it was equivalent to spending money. It was impossible to get it back, nor could they use the money to buy things. However, after making use of the spatial trajectory, one could still control the power of the shot. There is also a connection between the trajectory and the trajectory. However, this connection was different from the connection that ordinary people knew. It was invisible and intangible, and there was no real rope lock. Using this method of trajectory connection, one could set up his strength ahead of time like Jack. It was similar to planting landmines. One had the detonator and could detonate the landmines he had planted in advance at any time. Chapter 416. However, in comparison, Jacker's life blast was more sinister and powerful. This was because Jacker had detonated the energy of a life form. In other words, he didn't expend his own primordial energy. All he did was use it. Wen's method required him to expend his own primordial energy to set up the landmines. It was much more troublesome and draining. However, Life Blast was too sinister. Every attack required the lives of others as the price. The stronger the life energy, the stronger the explosive force after it was detonated. When attempted to use the spatial trajectories he had figured out. Every connection of the trajectories would form a string on the ring. If there were too many connections, the ring would be covered with all sorts of lines like incantations. When had been studying the effects of spatial trajectories and using them as a breakthrough point in an attempt to advance Lost Country to an evolved body. Unfortunately, the advancement of a life soul wasn't that simple. Joan studied it all afternoon, but didn't make much progress. However, he was much more familiar with the use of spatial trajectories. Dr. Little Zhou, you're staying here? I really have to thank you for saving Lu Gui's life last time. Dr. Lu said that if you hadn't dealt with it in time, Lu Gui would have died. Zhou felt uncomfortable reading in the room. Just as he took the book to the door and moved a chair to sit by the door to read, an officer holding a wash basin immediately greeted him when he saw him. It's nothing. It's what I should do. Zhou had treated it as a last resort back then. He didn't wish to do such a thing a second time. Dr. Little Zhou, I've been to the river too many times recently and have a rash on my body. Although it's not too serious and will fade in 2 days, it's really itchy. Is there any way to stop the itch? The officer asked Zhou. Of course. An injection can stop the itch, Zhou said without hesitation. Dr. Darkness's fight poison with poison could restrain the rash toxin. As long as the dosage was appropriate, it was very easy to eliminate the rash. Really? The officer's eyes lit up as he looked at Zhou in anticipation. Dr. Little Zhou, can you give me an injection? I really can't stand the itch. I wish I could crush my bones. All right, come over and extend your arm. This was a trivial matter to Zhou. It was only right for him to help them. After all, they were stationed here, risking their lives to fight dimensional creatures, allowing the residents in the city to live and work in peace. The officer was overjoyed. He quickly rolled up his sleeves and stretched out his arm. Zhou summoned Dr. Darkness to possess him and used fight poison with poison. A syringe appeared in his hand. As he wasn't a professional to begin with, Zhou didn't need to use a strap to protrude the blood vessels. He directly stabbed the needle into the vein and slowly pushed a tiny amount of poison in. At first, the officer was still excited, thinking that he finally didn't have to endure the crazy itch, but the next second, the officer's face suddenly turned pale. He felt an unparalleled pain that he had never experienced in his life. In an instant, his entire body felt like it was cramping. Anyone who had cramps in their legs knew that it was very uncomfortable, but now he felt that his entire body was cramping violently. It wasn't just his legs, but even his fingers and toes were cramping. His organs were twitching to the point that they were on the verge of collapse. The officer fell to the ground and kept convulsing as though he had gone mad. White foam spewed from his mouth as his eyes rolled back. At that moment, if he still had the strength, he wished he could slam his head against the wall and die. This pain was much more uncomfortable than the itch from before. Is the dosage a little too much? Zhou muttered to himself as he looked at the officer. He wasn't worried that anything would happen to the officer because the dosage he had injected was very small. It wasn't enough to cause too much damage. It would just hurt for a while. The nearby soldiers didn't know what had happened as they surrounded him in concern. Seeing that the officer was convulsing so much that he couldn't speak, they wanted to send him to the medical team. "Don't touch him. He'll be fine soon." Joan stopped the soldiers. One of the soldiers seemed to understand it very well and said to the other soldiers, "This little brother is right. This is called sheep's delirium. You can't touch him when he's convulsing, or else he might die. Quickly put his head to the side and use something to block his tongue. Don't let him bite his tongue. He should be fine after a while." Epilepsy my ass. The officer finally endured the most painful period as he sat up with a pale face. At that moment, he was filled with regret. There were a few times when he thought of dying to save himself from suffering such inhumane pain. If he had known that it would be so painful, he would have rather suffered the itch. "Dr. Little Joe, thank you." Although he regretted it, the officer still thanked Joe when politely before leaving with a pale face. Joan didn't think much of it. It was just a small matter to begin with. However, Joan never expected that a simple matter would be of great use at night. The officer led a team of soldiers on patrol, as usual. When they patrolled to a spot by the river, a strange fish suddenly stuck its head out of the river and spat out a mouthful of blood at the soldiers on the riverbank. The soldiers dodged, but the blood covered a large area like rain. They dodged very quickly, but they were still drenched. The other soldiers were poisoned on the spot and fainted. Red rashes began to appear on their bodies. Only the officer was surprisingly fine despite being drenched in blood. Thankfully, he hadn't fainted, allowing him to bring his soldiers back to the camp in time. Otherwise, if all of them had fainted, they might have died without being discovered. The officer used his companion beast to bring a team of soldiers back to the camp and sent them to the medical team. When Lu Su saw that the rashes on their bodies had begun to fester, she shook her head helplessly and said, "It's over. Their poison has already spread to their blood. There's nothing we can do." The officer was immediately stunned when he heard that. He said in disbelief, "Impossible. How can there be no hope? Dr. Liu, think of another solution. There must be a way to save them. These soldiers have been with him to this day, so how could he not have feelings for them?" He naturally couldn't accept it when he heard that they were about to die. They were sprayed with blood by the dimensional creature you mentioned. The poison spread too quickly. There's no saving them. Thankfully, you weren't stained with blood. Otherwise, you would have ended up like them, Lu Su said. "That's not right. I was also stained with blood. Why am I fine? By the way, it's Dr. Little Joe. Dr. Little Joe can definitely save them. Last time, Lu Gue was worse than them. It was Dr. Little Joe who treated him. Dr. Liu, quickly get Dr. Little Joe over. He can treat them," the officer said anxiously. Chapter 417. Lu Su frowned and said, "The Dr. Zhou when you mentioned previously doesn't exist in our medical team. If there was one, why wouldn't we get him to save you? How can it not be one? He's clearly a member of your medical team. I've even seen his identification. By the way, he's not a doctor. He's an intern," the officer said. "There's no such person among the intern doctors. There's no one with the surname Zhou." Lu Su felt that the officer must have been too upset and was beginning to spout nonsense. If he had really been sprayed with blood, how could he have returned alive? Furthermore, he had pulled his comrades back while he appeared fine. Impossible. He's clearly here. As the officer spoke, he seemed to think of something. He ran out as though he had gone mad. Sigh. What a sin. Lu Su sighed. The current era was an era that drove people crazy. Although humans had superpowers that they didn't even dare to dream of in the past, they also had to bear unimaginable pressure at the same time. Many people couldn't bear the blow and became mentally ill. From Lu Su's point of view, the officer was like those who couldn't withstand the blow and had developed psychological problems. The officer didn't think too much about it. He ran all the way to the place where he had met Joan. He remembered that Zhou when had come out of that dormitory. He wanted to find Zhou when not to prove that Dr. Little Zhou really existed, but to save his comrades. Zhou was lying in bed reading when he suddenly heard a series of hurried knocks on the door. Then he heard someone shouting desperately outside, "Dr. Little Zhou? Help! Dr. Little Zhou, are you there?" Zhou could tell that it was the officer outside, so he opened the door and asked, "Dr. Little Zhou, it's great that you're here. Please save my brothers." Upon seeing Zhou, the officer was close to tears. Without any explanation, he pulled Zhou towards the medical team. "What's the matter?" Zhou asked in confusion as he was pulled towards the medical team. "When my brothers were patrolling by the river, they were attacked by dimensional creatures that suddenly appeared in the river. They were sprayed with blood and quickly fainted. A large number of red rashes appeared on their bodies, and they were rapidly festering. The other doctors were helpless. If you don't go now, it will be too late," the officer said. When Zhou heard that, he hurriedly quickened his pace. He didn't wish to see a living person die in front of him. Since it was only a matter of time, he had to do his best. Soon, Zhou was pulled to the medical team by the officer. He saw 6 soldiers lying in a special ward with 2 nurses and a doctor taking care of them. However, their situation did not improve at all. The red rashes on their faces and hands had already festered into bloody holes. From afar, it looked like their faces were covered in bloody flowers. There was no beauty to it at all. It only made people shudder. "Dr. Little Zhou, quickly save my brothers. Quickly give them an injection," the officer said anxiously as he tugged at Zhou. "Are you the Dr. Zhou when they were talking about?" Lu Su sized up Zhou suspiciously. She was certain that Zhou wasn't from the medical team. She knew everyone in the medical team, and there was no such person. Furthermore, Zhou looked too young. He was probably not even 20 years old. It was no wonder the officer called him Dr. Little Zhou. Nowadays, people typically enter university at the age of 16 or 17. After graduating from university, they should be past the age of 20. "I'm a new intern doctor, Zhou. I haven't reported to the medical team yet," Zhou said as he showed his identification. Lu Su took the identification and looked at it. It was indeed real. He was really an intern doctor. This person wasn't a figment of the soldiers. "Can I take a look at their injuries?" Zhou asked Lu Su. Of course. Lu Su also wanted to know if Zhou could really treat the poison. If he could, Lu Su would even be very grateful to him. The army wasn't a hospital. There weren't any comparisons, selfishness, or jealousy that ordinary doctors had. Saving a soldier's life was more important than anything else. Furthermore, if Zhou could treat the rash, it would be a great thing for the entire Chess Mountain garrison. It would resolve a huge problem for them. Seeing Lu Su agree, Zhou walked to an injured soldier and looked at his injuries. The 2 nurses beside him looked at him curiously. Zhou looked younger than them, but he was addressed as a doctor by the officer. Furthermore, he seemed to have placed all his hopes on him. This made them very curious about what kind of person Zhou was and if he could really treat the rashes on these soldiers. Zhou could tell at a glance that it was indeed the same as the rashes from before. He immediately summoned Dr. Darkness to possess him and used fight poison with poison. A syringe appeared in his hand. Without any hesitation, Zhou grabbed the soldier's wrist and injected it. Lu Su was given a fright. She wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Zhou had only taken a glance before injecting him. It was a little unreliable. However, on second thought, Lu Su realized that no matter how unreliable he was, there was still some hope. Even if Zhou didn't administer the needles, these soldiers wouldn't survive, so she didn't stop him. With his previous 2 experiences, Zhou roughly knew what dosage to inject. Therefore, after injecting a certain amount, he stopped and walked to the next soldier. There were a total of 6 soldiers. In just a moment, Zhou had completed all the injections. "That's enough. This is all I can do. I'll need to trouble the nurses to help deal with the festering wounds on their bodies," Zhou said. "Dr. Little Zhou, are they all right?" the officer asked nervously. "If there aren't any accidents, they should be like Lu Gui. They need to recuperate for a period of time. I still have something to do, so I'll be heading back first," Zhou said as he walked out. The officer trusted Zhou very much. Upon hearing Zhou's words, he immediately felt relieved. After thanking Zhou, he ran to the bedside to see his comrade. Lu Su frowned when she saw this. From the way he injected the patient to his attitude, it was obvious that Zhou Wen was extremely unprofessional. Even his qualifications to be an intern were questionable. For such a serious patient, one had to observe their reactions after injecting the medicine. However, he didn't look at anything and left after the injection. He didn't look like a doctor at all. Lu Su had no idea that Zhou Wen wasn't a doctor at all. He didn't know any medical skills, so it was useless for him to stay. Lu Su was about to stop Zhou Wen, but before she could say a word, she heard a nurse shout, "He's reacting." Lu Su was alarmed as she hurriedly looked at the nurse. She saw that the nurse was pointing at a soldier with a look of surprise. Lu Su looked at the soldier and was equally surprised. The soldier grunted and woke up. Furthermore, the rashes on his body seemed to have stopped festering. Chapter 4:18. The 6 soldiers quickly woke up. They had no choice but to wake up. The poison injected by Zhou Wen was just too painful. They woke up from the pain. Lu Su quickly checked the 6 soldiers one by one and discovered that the poison and rashes on their bodies were subsiding. Their spirits were also slowly improving. It was unbelievable. It's unbelievable. How'd he do it? Lu Su was alarmed, but she didn't idle around. She worked with the 2 nurses to treat the festering wounds on the 6 soldiers. Although the poison and rashes had subsided, the festering wounds hadn't healed. They still needed to be treated. After working for half a day, when the 6 soldiers fell into a deep sleep, the surprise in Lu Su's eyes became more and more intense. What was certain was that the rashes on the soldiers' bodies had indeed subsided in such a short period of time. How did he do it? Lu Su had studied it for a long time, but she failed to find a way to treat the rashes. It was fine if they didn't flare up, but once they flared up, they would definitely die. But today, these 6 soldiers had already taken half a step into the gates of hell, but they were still revived by Zhou Wen's needle. It left her in disbelief. What kind of medicine is he using? Why is it so effective? Lu Su thought to herself. "Thank you, Dr. Lu," the officer said gratefully to Lu Su. Although Lu Su hadn't treated his comrades, she had done her best. She had even helped them deal with the festering wounds on their bodies. This was already very commendable. "Let me ask you, were you really stained with blood?" Lu Su asked the officer. "That's right. If I could react in time, I wouldn't have let my comrades be drenched in blood," the officer said. "Then why didn't you get infected with the rashes like them?" Lu Su asked again. She naturally believed the officer's words. The officer thought for a moment and said, "It should be this morning. I got Dr. Little Zhou to give me an injection. The effects of that injection are still there, right?" Now, he was very glad that he had gotten Zhou Wen to give him an injection. Otherwise, they would have been dead by the time the other patrols discovered them. In comparison, the pain he had suffered was nothing. Is it because of the long-lasting effects or the formation of antibodies? Lu Su thought to herself. If it was the latter, the medicine Zhou Wen used would be even more precious. Lu Su planned on finding a time to have a good chat with Zhou Wen to see if it was possible to promote the medicine and benefit the soldiers. She originally believed that Zhou Wen would report to her soon. Lu Su was in charge of the medical team, so interns should report to her. However, Lu Su didn't see Zhou Wen the next day. Lu Su did not get angry because of this, because she knew very well that interns should report to her first before their medical team could arrange accommodation and issue certificates. However, Zhou Wen knew that escaping wouldn't solve the problem. Therefore, he accepted the friend request, hoping to see if the arch was the flower or if it was just a coincidence. "Why did you take so long to accept my friend request? Are you tired of living?" Just as he accepted the request, the arch sent him a message. Zhou Wen found it unbelievable that a flower could use a phone, but from the tone, it did seem like it was carved from the same mold as the flower. "Who are you?" Zhou Wen probed. "Why? Have you forgotten me so quickly? Do you want me to make another wish for you to deepen your memory?" A message was quickly sent back. "So, it's really the arch. I never expected you to be able to use a phone. There shouldn't be any signal there, right? How'd you go online?" Zhou replied. How can such a trivial matter stump me? The Thearka's reply clearly sounded smug, but she didn't say how she had done it. Since you know how to use a phone, I suggest you read books or television dramas online. I personally recommend Super Genes to you. It's especially good. You should be interested. Just as Zhou sent the message, he regretted it. It was too late to take it back. All right, I'll take a look. The Tharch had already seen the message and quickly replied to Zhou. Zhou was very vexed. The flower might really be a flower that could survive just by basking in the sun. It wouldn't harm human lives. But if it saw the super gene, what if it turned into a foodie like the people in the movies? Wouldn't a lot of humans suffer? Chapter 419. The Tharch was like a young man who had just learned how to chat online. Or perhaps she had been alone for too long. There was no end to her chatting. She could answer any question and kept asking Zhou all sorts of questions, leaving him with no time to do anything else. After returning to the encampment, the Tharch was still asking him all sorts of questions about the internet. She looked very excited. Just as Zhou was thinking about how to send the Tharch away, the Tharch suddenly sent him another message. What does it mean for the phone to indicate that there's not enough battery? Phones rely on batteries to provide energy. If the battery runs out, the phone will automatically shut down. It needs to be recharged before it can be used. Zhou was immediately amused. He thought to himself, there are no wires in that crappy place of yours, so there's definitely no way to charge it. Let's see how you're going to pester me online in the future. How do I charge it? Can I use lightning to blast it? The Tharch sent another message. Definitely not. Lightning isn't stable. It will blow up the phone. To charge a phone, you have to use ordinary household electricity. You also need a special charger. You'll know if you search online, Zhou said. Zhou was secretly delighted that there was no news from the Tharch. He wondered if her phone had run out of battery. He could finally escape this huge trouble in the future. To his surprise, the Tharch sent another message after a while. Bring a small diesel generator and a bucket of diesel, as well as a matching charger for your phone, before noon tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll make a wish to turn you into a cripple with no limbs. Zhou's joy immediately turned to sorrow. He gaped and didn't say a word for a long time. I'm being pursued by my enemies now. How can I have the time to get those things for you? Besides, I have to buy those things in a nearby city. Even if I want to go, I won't be back before noon tomorrow. Furthermore, there's a powerful enemy chasing me every day. I don't dare go, Zhou complained. What enemy? The Tharch sent a message. Zhou recounted Jacker's various abilities and even exaggerated them. He deliberately exaggerated Jacker's strength, as though he would be blasted to death the moment he stepped out. I thought you were some impressive figure, but you're just a nobody. How about this? Bring me everything I want before tomorrow evening. I'll give you something good that will allow you to easily kill that enemy, the Tharch said disdainfully. What good stuff? Zhou's heart stirred. You'll know when you come. Remember, you have to deliver the item before the sun sets tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll make a wish that you lose all your limbs. After the Tharch sent the message, there was no sound. It was unknown if she had run out of power. Zhou sent a few more messages, but there was no response. It was probably out of battery. I wonder if the wishing ability of that flower can work on me from a distance. Zhou thought for a moment and felt that it wasn't worth it to gamble his 5 limbs for a generator and some diesel. Furthermore, the flower had said that it would give him something good that could kill Jacker. Zhou felt that it was worth the trip. With that, Zhou left the house again and rode the mutated stone Qi to the nearby city at full speed. He wanted to return quickly and send the flower away so that he could read and game in peace. The mutated stone Qi wasn't slower than a car. Furthermore, he didn't need to take the roads. Zhou went straight to the nearby city and quickly bought all the items needed for the flower. Zhou originally wondered if he would encounter an ambush from Jacker on the way, so he had been careful the entire time. However, nothing happened. Jacker didn't appear. It wasn't that Jacker didn't want to ambush Zhou, but that he didn't have the time. Shin Yuqi had indeed given him quite a number of companion beasts, but those companion beasts had owners. Shin Yuqi had to think of a way to get their companion beasts over. Those people were all prisoners in heaven's prison. Shin Yuchi didn't expect them to return alive when he sent them over. Jacker forcefully plundered their companion beasts one by one, spending quite a bit of time and effort. He couldn't complete it in a short period of time, so he didn't have the time to ambush Zhouwen. Zhouwen brought the small diesel generator, a 20-kilogram bucket of diesel, and a charger to Chest Mountain again. He saw the flower. Just leave the items by the side of the mountain wall. A familiar woman's voice sounded from the flower. The Arch, I spent most of my savings to buy these things. You have to use them sparingly. If you damage them, I won't have the money to buy you new ones, Zhouwen lamented. He mainly didn't want the flower to make him buy more things. Don't lie to me. I saw that the price online is very cheap, the Arch said. The price is very cheap, but I don't have the time to earn money. If I don't have an income, how can I have money? Buying these things has almost used up all my savings, Zhouwen said. The Arch seemed to think that Zhouwen's words made sense. After some thought, she said, I have some things here. Take them and exchange them for money. I left them on the stone steps at the top of the mountain. Take them yourself. Also, the thing I promised you is there. You can use it to deal with your enemy. As long as you aren't too stupid, he will definitely die if he dares to come looking for you. What is it? Zhouwen asked. You'll know when you see it. The Arch didn't tell him directly. Zhouwen had no choice but to climb to the top of Chest Mountain. Indeed, he saw two more things on the stone steps. One was a dimensional crystal, and the other was a small bone flute. If your enemy comes looking for you again, blow the bone flute. It will definitely be useful when the time comes. Take the other dimensional crystal and exchange it for money. The Thearch's voice sounded from the mountain wall. Zhouwen saw that the bone flute was very simple and crude. He didn't know what animal's bone it was made of, nor did he see any special aura flowing about it. It was similar to something from the mortal world. The other dimensional crystal was actually a primordial energy skill crystal. The projection inside was a jade pipa. It looked rather gorgeous, but he didn't know what level the primordial energy skill crystal was. He could only wait until he returned to use the mysterious phone to take a look. He was afraid that the flower would take a fancy to him if he took out the mysterious phone. How do I use this bone flute? Zhouwen put away the dimensional crystal and asked while holding the bone flute. When you see him again, use all your essence energy to blow the bone flute. When the time comes, it will naturally be useful. However, let me tell you, this bone flute can only be used once. Don't use it recklessly, the Arch said. Seeing that she wasn't willing to tell him, Zhouwen had no choice but to put away the bone flute and return. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw that the generator and diesel he had placed at the foot of the mountain had disappeared. He had no idea where they had gone. The flower didn't make another sound and ignored Zhouwen. This suited Zhouwen's intentions as he rode the mutated stone chi away from Chest Mountain. After he left Chest Mountain, he hurriedly took out his mysterious phone and snapped a picture of the dimensional crystal. He was immediately alarmed. The dimensional crystal was a mythical essence energy skill crystal. Chapter 420. Jade Pipa Crystal. Mythical. A few simple words left Zhouwen's heart palpitating as he nearly shouted out loud. However, just as Zhouwen was about to put into his phone, a notification popped up. Requires 41 Constitution, 21 Spatial Stat, Spatial Type Life Providence, Spatial Type Life Soul. If your stats don't meet the standard, you can't absorb it. Not only are there special stat requirements, but there are also Life Providence and Life Soul requirements. I've never seen a spatial stat before, so I don't know where to get it. The Constitution requirement is 41, which means that it's basically impossible to master a mythical primordial energy skill at the epic stage. This is because typical epic experts can only reach 40 Constitution at most. Zhouwen couldn't help but feel depressed after seeing this. His God-fiend Life Providence and Lost Country should be able to satisfy the Life Providence and Life Soul requirements. However, the stats were indeed a little troublesome. The requirements were too high, but he still had a chance of absorbing it. He wasn't like ordinary people who didn't even have a chance. Zhouwen naturally didn't plan on really selling this item. Since he could use it, he naturally had to keep it for himself. When he obtained enough stats, he could absorb it and comprehend a mythical primordial energy skill. Just the thought of an epic using a mythical primordial energy skill was exciting. After putting the crystal into the chaos space, Zhou looked at the bone flute in his hand. Any crystal the flower had taken out was at the mythical stage. It was likely that the bone flute would be of great use. Since she said that he could only use it once, Zhou didn't give it a try. He used his phone to take a picture, but there was no reaction. After putting the bone flute into the chaos space, Zhou thought of something. The chaos bead had the first order of chaos primordial energy art. Zhou had also gained basic mastery of it, but he didn't continue cultivating it. However, this primordial energy art was most likely spatial, similar to the God Fiend era. Zhou knew too many primordial energy arts, so he really didn't have the energy to study the first order of chaos. However, now that he thought about it, it didn't seem like it was a burden to have more skills. Those mythical primordial energy skills had requirements for life providences and life souls. Perhaps they could be used in the future. Of course, Zhou only had this thought. Now, he didn't have the energy to study the first order of chaos. He needed to condense the other life souls before advancing to a perfect body. If he couldn't break through to the mythical stage, he would have enough time to study it. Although he had taken the flower's bone flute, Zhou didn't plan on using it. The flower said that the bone flute could help him defeat his enemies, but Zhou wasn't sure what the actual situation was. If this thing was the key to opening Chess Mountain Seal, wouldn't he be in huge trouble? Before he returned to the encampment, Zhou's phone rang when he arrived at a place with a phone signal. He looked at it and saw that it was a message from Wang Lu. The message had been sent for some time, but Zhou hadn't received it because he was in a place without a signal. Do you need help? Wang Lu's message was very simple. I can handle it. I'll return after I settle the matter here, Zhou replied. I'll wait for you. You have to make up for the breakfast you owe me. Soon, Wang Lu replied. How are we going to make up for this? Didn't you always buy it? If breakfast isn't enough, lunch will make up for it. All right. After chatting with Wang Lu for a while, he realized that the Dwarch had sent him a message. From the looks of it, her phone had been charged. Zhou found it odd as he thought to himself, it's just a flower. How does it use things like generators? When he clicked on the Thearcha's message, he saw that she had sent him a dynamic smiley face. She sure learns quickly. She even knows how to use emojis. Zhou didn't reply, afraid that he wouldn't have time to do anything else if she kept chatting with him. Seeing that Zhou didn't reply, the Dwarch sent a series of emojis over and bombarded him with emojis. Zhou naturally ignored her. After a while, the Dwarch finally said, Is there something wrong with my use of emojis? Why aren't you answering me? Usually, people who have nothing better to do will post emojis. I thought you were fine when you posted it, Zhou said. When he was in high school, a female classmate added Zhou as a friend. From time to time, she would send him emojis, but Zhou never replied because he didn't know the meaning of emojis or how to reply. Oh, I see. The Dwarch was enlightened. Now that you have a generator, you don't have to worry about not having electricity. You can go online and watch those television dramas. It's very interesting. Zhou hurriedly introduced a few classic sitcoms to her. Zhou thought to himself that it would be great if she watched those television dramas and was influenced by the characters and ideals in the television dramas to become a joker. At the very least, she wouldn't have the thought of killing humans. I would have done a great service. All right, I'll go take a look. Remember to top up my phone bill. If I get hung up, you're dead. The Dwarch sent a message. She even knows how to top up her phone bill. Zhou was helpless. Thankfully, he had just received benefits, so he didn't care about the phone bill. Furthermore, he had saved quite a lot of phone bills on his phone. As long as she didn't make crazy calls and only went online, he didn't need to pay any more phone bills this year. He didn't know if the Dwarch had gone to watch a television drama, but she didn't send any more messages. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief and sped up his return to the encampment. Lu Su came to look for Zhou again that night, but she realized that he hadn't returned. Just as she was about to return, Zhou returned from outside and was walking over. Zhou, Lu Su called out to Zhou. Dr. Lu, do you live here too? Zhou walked over and asked, I don't live here. I came specially to look for you. Lu Su said. Look for me? What's the matter? Zhou looked at Lu Su in puzzlement. Why didn't you report to the medical team? Lu Su asked. Zhou thought for a moment and said, To be honest, I'm actually not an intern doctor. This identification is just to make it convenient for me to stay in the encampment. That's not important. Since you already have the identity of an intern doctor, you should do what an intern should do, right? I've been studying rashes, hoping to resolve this virus, but I haven't made much progress. Can you tell me what medicine you used? If there's a need to keep your medicine a secret, there's no need to tell me the exact ingredients. I just want to know if there will be antibodies formed after using your medicine. Will there be any side effects? If it can form antibodies without any side effects, I hope you can take some out. I'll apply for funds to buy them and inject the soldiers with this medicine. This way, there will be fewer casualties and it will be of great help to the future battles. Even if I can't form antibodies, I hope to buy a batch as backup, Lu Su said quickly. Chapter 4:21. Dr. Lu, I'm really sorry. I didn't use any medicine. Actually, what I used to treat those soldiers was an ability of my companion beast. As for antibodies, I don't know either. I don't know how long the effects of a companion beast skills can last either. Although I want to help you, there's really not much I can do. If another soldier suffers such injuries, you can call me at any time, Zhou said. Upon hearing Zhou's words, Lu Su was somewhat disappointed. Companion beasts' primordial energy skills typically had a time limit. They were useful at that time, but they were useless after that time. They wouldn't form antibodies. In this era, the use of companion beasts in medicine is becoming more and more widespread. To have such a companion beast means that you have the good qualifications to become a doctor. Are you interested in learning some medical knowledge from me? Lu Su felt that it would be a waste for Zhou to not be a doctor with such a companion beast. Zhou shook his head and said, I'm really sorry. I still have many things to do. I don't usually have much time. Although Lu Su was somewhat disappointed, she didn't say anything else. Since Zhou had the ability to treat the rashes, it was already an unexpected gain. It could reduce many casualties. This matter didn't end there. In a few days, Lu Su would discover that the soldiers who had been injected with the poison by Zhou were already immune from the rashes. Even if they were stationed by the river, they wouldn't have any rashes. Although Dr. Darkness was only at the epic stage, he wasn't an ordinary companion beast. Be it his background or abilities, he was very special. Zhou returned to his dorm and finally had a good sleep. After waking up, he first went to the underground sea and gave the black dragon a palm strike. The black dragon already had a few poisonous boils formed from palm prints. Although the poisonous boils hadn't killed it, it was obvious that the black dragon's mental state was somewhat abnormal. If the other 8 black dragons were muscular youths, then this black dragon was like an old man in his twilight years. Its movements had become much slower in all aspects. Furthermore, it looked a little muddle-headed, as though its mind was no longer clear. From the looks of it, the poison has already affected it greatly. I wonder how long it will take to poison it to death. What Zhou was looking forward to the most was the black dragon companion beast dropping. When this fellow was chained up, be it his speed, strength, or abilities, they were greatly weakened. Once he was unchained, Zhou wouldn't even last a minute in front of the black dragon before being killed. The difference was just too great. If he could obtain the black dragon companion beast, he might be able to have a true mythical fighter. He would need to slowly nurture it like Banana Fairy. Although it was indeed fun to nurture it from the beginning, its combat strength was indeed lacking. Furthermore, it was too slow. Tyrant Behemoth was still at the legendary stage. It was unknown when it would advance to the epic stage. For 2 consecutive days, the Arch didn't send him a message. Zhou could finally read and game in peace, but the mortal stage monsters in the game dungeons were almost wiped out by Zhou. There was no point in grinding any further, so all he could do was continue reading. Jacker won't give up, will he? It's been a few days. Why hasn't there been any movement? Zhou didn't make any progress in his reading, so he began to miss Jacker. Fighting such a fellow The feeling of facing death directly was terrifying, but also gave him a vague sense of excitement. At that moment, Zhou felt that his thoughts had become much clearer. His thoughts had also become more active and nimble. At that moment, Jacker was so excited that he couldn't control himself. In front of him was a white-haired old man. The old man looked demented as he sat there motionless. As for his body, it emitted a strange, sanguine glow. Especially his eyes, they shimmered with a red glow. The blood hex clown possessed the old man's body and replaced his will to control his body. Even the memories in his mind were controlled. From the old man's memories, Jacker discovered a huge secret. This old prisoner actually had a mythical companion beast. He had never told anyone about this. He had paid a huge price to silently nurture a mythical companion beast to the epic stage. He originally imagined that he could rely on a mythical companion beast to become an overlord in the future, but the resources needed to advance a mythical companion beast were just too much. He couldn't afford it himself, so he could only use his job to obtain some information. In the end, just as he nurtured his companion beast to the epic stage, something happened. He was secretly arrested by the Bureau and locked up in Heaven Prison. As his position was relatively special and he had embezzled some special items, it wasn't convenient for him to be dealt with publicly. Therefore, the Bureau took over. As he was only a corrupt criminal, the Bureau only interrogated him as usual. They didn't waste any resources or use overly intense methods. The Elder endured it and didn't reveal the matter of the mythical companion beast. This time, he had also been sent to Jacker by Shinyuchi. It was originally because he had a companion beast that could change colors and disguise itself. This was something Jacker wanted. However, he never expected Jacker to discover this huge secret in his memories. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. What a fool. With such a mythical companion beast, he was easily captured by the chaos of the Bureau. Even with a mythical companion beast, he's still trash. But this is a good deal for me. Without any hesitation, Jacker activated the Blood Hex Clown's ability and controlled the Elder's body. He made him pay the price of his life to forcefully transfer his companion beast to Jacker. When a man collapsed like a corpse, a strange tattoo appeared on Jacker's arm. It was a purple cat-shaped tattoo. Shinyuchi, oh Shinyuchi, no matter how much you calculated, you never expected that I, Jacker, would have such luck, right? With this mythical companion beast, the taboo you left on me can no longer restrain me. After I enjoy a delicious meal, I'll definitely head to the capital and kill everyone in the Bureau. Jacker looked at the purple cat tattoo on his arm as the excitement on his face intensified. When Jacker snatched the Elder's mythical companion beast, Zhou wore a look of delight. After waiting for so long, the fruit on the dead man tree finally ripened and fell from the tree. His phone automatically vibrated to indicate that Zhou had obtained the fruit in-game. Mythical companion egg. Do you want to incubate it? When the blood-colored avatar caught the fruit, a notification popped up on his phone. Mythical companion egg. Zhou was pleasantly surprised. Although he had already guessed it, seeing a mythical companion egg still made him unable to contain his excitement. He hurriedly looked at the mythical companion egg stats. Chapter 422. Demonic Neonate. Mortal Evolvable. Life Providence. Son of Dimension Life Soul. Supreme True Demon Wheel of Destiny. 1 Revolution Strength. 11 Speed. 11 Constitution. 11 Essence Energy. 11 Talent Skill. Demonic Sword Companion Form. Now what's going on? Zhou was dumbfounded. He was momentarily at a loss. This demonic neonate's stats were too strange. Zhou originally imagined that he could directly incubate a mythical companion beast. After all, he had Dr. Darkness as an example, but from the looks of it, that wasn't the case. From a mortal stage and evolvable stage, this was likely the initial state of a mythical companion beast. However, even a mythical creature wouldn't have a life providence or life soul at the mortal stage. They had to slowly advance before condensing them. However, demonic neonate actually had a life providence and life soul at the mortal stage. She also had a wheel of destiny that Zhou had never seen before. He didn't know what was going on. Although he didn't know what was going on, Zhou still incubated her first. After absorbing a lot of essence energy, the purple copper-like companion egg transformed into a stream of light that fused into Zhou body. It transformed into a thumb-sized, purple-haired baby girl that appeared on Zhou arm. Zhou summoned demonic neonate. It was about 40 to 50 centimeters tall, about the size of doll. It had long purple hair and wore purple armor. In its arms was a strange companion beast that held an ancient purple copper sword. It appeared in front of Zhou. Zhou saw that her face was no different from the fierce girl. However, her figure was much smaller, about the size of a baby. As Zhou sized up the girl, she stared back at him with widened eyes. She seemed to be sizing him up as well, leaving him alarmed and puzzled. The companion eggs produced by the dead man tree were all stranger than the last. Dr. Darkness was already shocking enough, but this demonic neonate seemed to have her own thoughts just after being incubated. With a thought from Zhou, demonic neonate accepted his orders. She carried the ancient sword in her arms and walked to a table by the side. With a gentle leap, she landed on the table and poured a cup of tea for Zhou. When Zhou saw that she was as obedient as an ordinary companion beast, he immediately felt relieved. He got her to do some things, and demonic neonate completed them according to Zhou's instructions. Although it's a little strange, it should be fine. Zhou unsummoned demonic neonate and took out his phone to enter the game dungeon. After choosing, he chose the Myriad Buddha Cave in Dragon Gate Grotto. After entering, he summoned demonic neonate. Most of the monsters in the dungeon had been killed by Zhou. There were still some scattered golden warriors in Myriad Buddha Cave, but Zhou couldn't be bothered to waste time searching for them one by one. Now, he could use them to test demonic neonate strength. After searching for a while, he finally found a golden warrior. Zhou ordered demonic neonate to kill the golden warrior and see if she could do it. Golden warriors were at the legendary stage and had astonishing defense. As for demonic neonate, she was only at the mortal stage. Logically speaking, demonic neonate shouldn't be a match for a golden warrior. However, demonic neonate had a life providence and life soul that ordinary legendary creatures didn't have. Zhou had brought her here to see if her life providence and life soul could be used. Demonic neonate received Zhou's order, but she stood there without moving. She hugged the ancient sword and looked at the golden warrior. Is she afraid? As Zhou was thinking, he suddenly saw the ancient sword in demonic neonate's arms automatically leave its scabbard. It transformed into a purple beam of light and flew out. Even Zhou didn't see the sword beam clearly before the golden warrior was cleaved into two by the sword beam. It dropped a dimensional crystal that dissipated. The flying sword circled around before automatically returning to the scabbard demonic neonate was hugging. What a powerful primordial energy skill. This is definitely not at the level of a mortal primordial energy skill. It's even stronger than my transcendent flying immortal. Logically speaking, such a primordial energy skill should expend a large amount of primordial energy. The amount of primordial energy at the mortal stage isn't enough to support such a powerful primordial energy skill. How'd she do it? Zhou was alarmed as he constantly sized up demonic neonate. After some thought, Zhou unsummoned demonic neonate and switched dungeons before entering the Zhuolu battlefield. The Zhuolu battlefield was very vast. Zhou ran very far in-game before finally finding a surviving Qi. He summoned demonic neonate again and got her to try killing it. Although the Qi wasn't as powerful as the mutated stone Qi, it was still top-notch at the epic stage. Demonic neonate continued hugging the ancient sword as she coldly looked at the charging Qi. When the Qi approached her, the ancient sword in her arms automatically unsheathed itself and transformed into a purple beam of light that slashed at the Qi. The Qi let out a roar as the black smoke above its head condensed into a dragon-shaped life soul. It spewed out black smoke at the purple beam, hoping to use the black smoke to block it. Zhou had seen how powerful the black smoke was, but the purple sword beam sliced through the black smoke, life soul, and chi like it was tofu. Zhou was dumbfounded as he watched the ancient sword return to its scabbard. Demonic neonate hugged the ancient sword and remained standing there expressionlessly. This fellow is really impressive. Is this still a mortal companion beast? If she continues advancing, what kind of changes will there be? Zhou felt that demonic neonate's advancement wouldn't be like that of ordinary mythical creatures. After all, she already had a life providence and life soul. It was hard to imagine what would happen if she evolved again. Condense a second life providence and second life soul, or strengthen her original life providence and life soul. Zhou couldn't guess it. Furthermore, the wheel of life, soul, gave Zhou an odd feeling. Unfortunately, I don't have a true mythical companion beast. I wonder if I'll have such a thing after advancing to the mythical stage. Zhou guessed inwardly, but he didn't have an answer. Now, no humans could advance to the mythical stage. Only the 6 families had some mythical companion beasts. Zhou didn't have any friends in the 6 families, so he had nowhere to ask. However, I've finally confirmed one thing. Although demonic neonate is still at the mortal stage, her combat strength is stronger than most epic creatures. Just one demonic sword strike is probably enough to kill most epic creatures. This is for you. You have to work hard in the future. Zhou took out an epic companion egg and gave it to her. It had dropped previously, so Zhou couldn't bear to feed it to his companion beast. However, he hadn't been grinding dungeons recently, so he didn't have the chance to have any companion eggs drop. There was only one, and he had left in the game dungeon. To his surprise, demonic neonate only glanced at the epic companion egg before turning her head to the side. Her cold attitude left Zhou even more depressed than contempt. Chapter 4:23. You aren't even eating an epic companion egg. Aren't you being a little too picky? Zhou thought to himself that if it were Tyrant Behemoth, it would have long run over like a pug. This fellow actually ignored it. Demonic neonate still stood there with a cold expression without any reaction. It was as though she would only move when Zhou gave the order. Forget it. You will naturally eat it when you are hungry. Seeing that there was no hunger notification on his phone, Zhou placed the companion egg in the game dungeon again. It wouldn't be too late to retrieve it when demonic neonate was hungry. This isn't a solution. I can't grind dungeons now, but my companion beasts need to eat, especially Tyrant Behemoth. If I hadn't incubated quite a lot of food for it and slowly controlled it to eat, allowing it to live, I'm afraid it would have run out of food long ago. Zhou thought about it, but couldn't come up with a good solution. All he could do was wait for the black dragon to die before grinding. Lu Su was reading a report. It was a random inspection report of a few soldiers, and the results shocked her. The soldiers that Zhou had saved had recovered in less than 2 days. However, the scars on their bodies would take some time to disappear, but it didn't stop them from participating in battle. A breakout creature had appeared the day before yesterday. A large number of soldiers had participated in the encirclement, but some of them were drenched in blood. 3 of them were the ones Zhou had saved. The other soldiers had red rashes on their bodies and fainted on the spot. They were dragged into the river, but the 3 of them were fine. They were lucky to escape the calamity. Lu Su asked someone to draw their blood for an experiment, but the results showed that they already had a high resistance to the rash. Even if the virus entered their bodies, it would not cause too much damage. Instead, they would slowly die and not be able to reproduce and spread. How can this be? If it's 1 or 2, it can be said to be a coincidence, but all of them are like this. There's only one possibility. The power of Zhou's companion beasts really made their bodies produce antibodies. The more Lu Su thought about it, the more she felt that she was right. This discovery excited Lu Su. Although there was no medicine, Zhou's companion beast abilities were more effective than medicine. If all the soldiers had such resistance, they would be much more proactive in their battles in Chess Mountain. At the very least, they wouldn't have to worry about falling into the blood river and could fight in it. There was also no need to worry about getting a rash after standing guard for too long. This way, more people could be sent to strengthen the surveillance, and it would be easier to deal with the situation if something happened. Previously, because the soldiers couldn't stay by the river for long periods of time, although they had enough manpower, they could only split into several groups and constantly rotate. With Zhou Wen's ability, there was no need to go through so much trouble. They could set up more sentry posts and expand the surveillance range. This time, Lu Su wasn't in a hurry to find Zhou Wen. Instead, she went to Qin Wufu's office. Qin Wufu was handling official matters when he heard the guard inform him that Lu Su wanted to see him. He stopped what he was doing and got the guard to invite Lu Su in. Although Lu Su was only in her 30s and her position wasn't considered high, the medical team was related to the lives of tens of thousands of officers and soldiers. Qin Wufu didn't dare slight her. Su, why are you looking for me? Qin Wufu didn't put on any airs. Furthermore, Lu Su's family had some ties with him. He had always treated Lu Su as a junior. Lu Su said, "Uncle Qin, I want someone from you. Who's so important to make you come here personally?" Qin Wufu asked Lu Su curiously. After Lu Su took charge of the medical team, she didn't use her relationship with him to raise any conditions. However, she managed the medical team in an orderly manner. The soldiers also approved of her. This made Qin Wufu very satisfied. Now Lu Su suddenly asked for a person. This made Qin Wufu very curious about who she wanted. An intern doctor, Lu Su said. Qin Wufu was even more puzzled. He looked at Lu Su and asked, "The medical team is under your management. Why are you asking me for an intern doctor if you want one?" With that said, Qin Wufu came to a realization. You want to recruit new interns, right? It's not that Uncle Qin doesn't want to help you recruit them, but there are too few people studying medicine now. Ever since the dimensional storms, the chances of humans falling sick have decreased year by year. There are fewer people studying medicine. Furthermore, a military doctor needs to have medical skills. Uncle Qin, there's no need to recruit new doctors. I just want an intern doctor in the encampment, Lu Su said. An intern doctor in the encampment? Qin Wufu was slightly taken aback. He knew that Lu Su wasn't someone who would cause trouble for no reason. Since she said she wanted this person, there was definitely this person in the encampment. He's in the encampment and not under Lu Su's control. Qin Wufu immediately thought of Zhou Wen. He looked at Lu Su with an odd expression and asked, "Don't tell me the person you want is Zhou Wen." "Uncle Qin, you do know him." "That's right. I want him. I hope he can join the medical team and become an official member of the medical team," Lu Su said. Qin Wufu looked at Lu Su and asked, "Why do you want him?" Qin Wufu found it extremely odd. He knew very well that Zhou Wen was just an ordinary university student. He didn't study medicine. He had casually filled out the proof of being an intern doctor for Zhou Wen. It was mainly to make it convenient for Zhou Wen to come and go from the encampment without training with ordinary soldiers. With him, you can resolve a problem in your heart, Uncle Qin, Lu Su said solemnly. "Oh, what's the problem?" Qin Wufu asked Lu Su with interest. "The rash problem. With Zhou Wen, our soldiers won't have to be afraid of the blood-colored river in the future. They won't have rashes again. They can always guard the sentry post and won't need to be rotated often. They can also fight in the blood-colored river," Lu Su said word by word. "What? Are you sure?" Qin Wufu stood up in shock and asked Lu Su. Lu Su was right. This was indeed a problem for him. Because of this problem, the army had lost at least 40% of its combat strength. Their monitoring of Chess Mountain was also relatively weak. In the past, with Yinjun around, although Yinjun's temper was a little strange, he could help him resolve these problems. Now, although Lu Su's medical skills were also superb, she couldn't resolve these strange problems. However, Yinjun had disappeared and Qin Wufu had been unable to contact him. There was no news of Yinjun from the forensics team, giving Qin Wufu a headache. When Lu Su suddenly said that Zhou Wen could resolve the problem of the blood river, Qin Wufu was pleasantly surprised and in disbelief. The few soldiers Zhou Wen saved were previously infected with rashes, and it had already flared up. Later, Zhou Wen cured them. After they were cured by Zhou Wen, their bodies no longer feared the blood river. "These are some experimental data I did." Lu Su handed the information she had brought to Qin Wufu. Chapter 424. After Qin Wufu finished reading the information, his expression turned odd. However, Lu Su said excitedly, Uncle Qin, with Zhou Wen's ability, our deployment at Chess Mountain won't be so passive. I'm afraid I can't give this person to you, Qin Wufu said. Lu Su couldn't help but be taken aback as she asked in puzzlement, Why? Uncle Qin, don't you believe me? I can guarantee that this information is true. The ability of Zhou Wen's companion beast can indeed effectively form antibodies, allowing the soldiers to no longer be afraid of the blood in the river. The side effects are also very small. No, Susu, you misunderstood me. I believe in your research and information, and I know that Zhou Wen does have such an ability. However, I still can't give him to you. Or rather, I don't have the authority to give him to you, Qin Wufu said with a bitter smile. You are the commander-in-chief of Chess Mountain. How can you not have the authority? What's Zhou Wen's background? Could he be sent by the Federation? Lu Su asked in puzzlement. No, he should be considered a member of the Sunset Army, but his identity is somewhat special, Qin Wufu said. Regardless of his identity, since he is a member of the Sunset Army, even if he is the overseer, he has the obligation to protect the lives of the soldiers. He has the responsibility to contribute his strength, Lu Su said solemnly. If he was the overseer, that would be easy. Unfortunately, he isn't, Qin Wufu said. Uncle Qin, who is he? Lu Su couldn't hold it in any longer. His name is Zhou Wen. The man Madame Lan married also has the surname Zhou. What do you think his identity is? Qin Wufu said. Lu Su immediately widened her eyes and said in surprise, Madame Lan actually found such a young husband. Isn't this old Nio? What nonsense are you talking about? Madame Lan's husband was Zhou Wen's father. Zhou Wen was still studying at Sunset College and was still a student. In the past, he had studied under Wang Mingyuan for a period of time, so the Bureau had targeted him and wanted to capture him for interrogation. Madame Lan placed him with us in the hope that we can protect him. Now that you're getting him to treat those soldiers, how am I to answer to Madame Lan if something happens to them, if there are people from the Bureau among them? Qin Wufu berated. Lu Su came to a sudden realization. So that's how it is. But if that's the case, even if it's for Madame Lan's sake, shouldn't he be more willing to help? Nonsense. If I say no, then no. I can't let anything happen to him. It wasn't that Qin Wufu didn't want Zhou Wen to help. However, Sheng had repeatedly instructed him not to let anything happen to Zhou Wen or interfere with his actions. If anything happened to Zhou Wen, Madame Lan would definitely pursue the matter to the end. When that happened, even the overseer probably wouldn't be able to stop her. Qin Wufu knew that Tianzhua was the most filial. If Madame Lan said one thing, even if Tianzhua was unwilling, it was impossible for him to say otherwise. Qin Wufu knew Madame Lan's temper. Although Madame Lan usually seemed easy to talk to, if she really touched her bottom line, she was someone who couldn't be stopped. Lu Su was rejected by Qin Wufu, but she refused to give up. She could clearly avoid the deaths of so many soldiers. So why couldn't she use Zhou Wen? Lu Su felt that Zhou Wen wasn't a foppish scion. From her impression of Zhou Wen, she felt that he was a very gentle person who was very willing to help others. He didn't have the temper of a young master. Uncle Qin said no, but if Zhou Wen is willing, that's another matter. Lu Su decided to convince Zhou Wen herself. After Lu Su left, Qin Wufu looked at the information in his hand and couldn't help but mutter to himself, It's really a pity for this Zhou Wen. If he hadn't been embroiled in Wang Mingyuan's matter, his future would have been limitless. Now that he's been targeted by the Bureau, it's hard to say if he'll be able to grow up in the future. Lu Su came out of Qin Wufu's office and went straight to Zhou Wen's. Zhou Wen was reading a book when Lu Su came and explained the reason for her visit to Zhou Wen. After Lu Su finished speaking, Zhou Wen looked at her and said, Dr. Lu, if it were in the past, I would definitely be duty-bound, but I'm afraid I can't agree to it now. Lu Su sighed and said, I can understand. After all, you've been targeted by the Bureau. If you have too much contact with the soldiers, it will give the Bureau an opportunity to take advantage of you. Zhou Wen shook his head. I'm not worried about my safety, but I'm afraid that the soldiers will be implicated by me. Lu Su didn't say anything else. She felt that Zhou Wen's words were just an excuse. No matter how powerful the Bureau was, it was impossible for them to forcefully charge into a military camp to kill people. How could they endanger ordinary soldiers? Lu Su believed that Zhou Wen had only said that to save her face. However, Lu Su didn't think there was anything wrong with Zhou Wen's actions. After all, everyone only had one life. There was nothing wrong with cherishing one's life. Everyone had the right to protect themselves. Therefore, Lu Su didn't say anything. Although she was somewhat disappointed, she decided to return and give it a try. She wanted to see if she could extract antibodies from the soldiers that Zhou Wen had treated. Although it might take a long time, Lu Su had no other choice. Dr. Lu, if there's nothing important, I hope you won't come to my place in the future. If there's anything, it's best if you send me a message. Zhou Wen felt that if Lu Su came to his place frequently, she might be implicated. A person like Jacker was best at using others' weaknesses. As long as he could achieve his goal, Zhou Wen believed that he would do anything. Don't worry, I won't disturb you again. Lu Su couldn't help but be completely disappointed when she heard Zhou Wen's words. After walking out of Zhou Wen's dormitory, Lu Su prepared to return to study the antibodies. After taking a few steps, she saw a person in an officer's uniform walking over. The officer walked with his head lowered. The brim of his hat covered most of his face, so Lu Su didn't see what he looked like. When he came close, the officer looked up. Lu Su looked at the officer and found him somewhat odd. The officer in front of her looked to be in his 30s, and his face was somewhat pale. It wasn't rare to see officers in their 30s in the Sunset Army, but this officer clearly looked like someone from the West District. He was very different from the people from the East District. Although the Sunset Army also had officers from the West District, there weren't many of them. Lu Su should know all of them, but she had never seen this officer before. Just as she was about to ask, the officer raised his hand and pressed it on her shoulder. Lu Su wanted to dodge, but her body didn't listen to her. The hand still pressed on her shoulder, and she immediately felt her body stiffen. She couldn't move. She opened her mouth, but she couldn't even make a sound. The officer smiled at Lu Su and asked elegantly, "You came out of Zhou Wen's room just now, right?" Chapter 425. Zhou Wen had been wearing the Truth Listener earring the entire time. Although he was still in the room, he immediately discovered the problem. He opened the door and walked out, only to see Jack standing there in his officer uniform. "We meet again. Not bad. You protected my ingredients very well." Jack stared at Zhou Wen's body and sized him up as though he was observing him as his food. "Aren't you afraid of being surrounded by entering the military camp so brazenly? Aren't you able to escape like the last time? Or could it be that this is just an avatar of yours?" Zhou Wen stared at Jack and sized him up. Jack smiled sinisterly. "It's hard to say who will be surrounded. As for whether this is my main body or an avatar, you can guess. If you guess correctly, I can let you choose the cooking method to be enjoyed by me." Zhou Wen silently held the bamboo blade. He didn't want to guess, nor did he say anything nonsense like letting Lu Su go. To a person like Jack, those words were meaningless. In his eyes, life was probably inferior to an ant. To Zhou Wen's surprise, Jacker pushed Lu Su, pushing her towards him. However, Zhou Wen didn't help Lu Su up. Instead, he took a few steps back and allowed Lu Su to stagger and fall to the ground. Lu Su was stunned. She didn't know what Zhou Wen meant or why he wasn't even willing to help her up. Just as she was about to stand up, she heard Zhou Wen say, "Sit there and don't move." Although Lu Su didn't know what Zhou Wen meant, she knew that the situation wasn't right. When she heard Zhou Wen's words, she sat on the ground and didn't stand up. She had roughly guessed that Jack was from the Bureau. "Shall we call for help?" Lu Su asked Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen shook his head slightly and looked at Jack. Jack laughed. "There's no need to be so nervous. I did plan a life blast on her, but I didn't plan on detonating it. Actually, it's not just her. Everyone in the entire military camp, apart from you, has been planted with a life blast. As long as I want to, I can hold a fireworks show here at any time. Do you want to see it?" When Lu Su heard the words life blast, her body trembled. Clearly, she knew what it meant. She also knew why Zhou Wen hadn't helped her up. If Zhou Wen had touched her, she might have already exploded. Zhou Wen, don't worry about me. Inform the deputy governor. We can't let such a person leave no matter what, Lu Su said through gritted teeth. Looks like you don't believe me. Jacker snapped his fingers. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions sounded in the camp. Zhou Wen and Lu Su watched helplessly as the body of a nearby soldier who was walking over exploded. Such explosions sounded several times in other parts of the camp. Zhou Wen counted inwardly, and there were a total of 5 explosions. The entire military camp was in chaos. There were alarms everywhere as the soldiers rushed to the scene. To Jack, Lu Su looked at the blood not far away and was dumbfounded. It wasn't that she had never seen dead people. Many people had died in battles with dimensional creatures, but this was the first time she had seen someone die like this. Now, Lu said that one. Lu, wolf god. Lu. One was Su was way. Dong. Lu I Su. I Zhou. Lu was when. Now, Lu Su finally believed what Zhou Wen had said. He wasn't afraid that someone among the soldiers would harm him, but that he was afraid of implicating them. How did you do it? Zhou Wen asked Jack without a change in expression. He had later checked the information on Life Blast. It was similar to his poison dragon palm. He needed to come into contact with a life medium to use Life Blast. Furthermore, the process was more complicated than the poison dragon palm. It wasn't as simple as a slap. It was easy to use small animals like ants and leaves as a medium, but it wasn't that easy to use humans as a medium. Zhou Wen didn't believe that Jack had planted Life Blast on everyone in the encampment. He felt that it was very likely that Jack was just bluffing. Perhaps he had only planted Life Blast on a few people. Jack said with a smile, "If someone else were to ask this question, I wouldn't even bother answering, but you are different." With that said, Jack extended his hand, and a purple cat appeared in front of him. The cat was covered in short purple fur. Its tail was curled up, but its eyes were black. Furthermore, one of its eyes had 2 pupils, making it look very demonic. Mythical cursed cat demon. Although it's still at the epic stage and hasn't truly advanced to the mythical stage, its abilities are very compatible with mine. After having it, I don't need to plant Life Blast myself. All I need to do is add Life Blast to its curse. Everyone who is cursed by it will automatically be planted with Life Blast, Jack said excitedly. The cursed cat demon and his abilities were a perfect match, greatly enhancing Jack's abilities. There should be a limit to curses, right? It's impossible for this cat to curse whoever it wants. Zhou Wen glanced at the chaotic camp and continued speaking to Jack. Of course there are restrictions. No power is completely unlimited. Although the cursed cat demon is a mythical creature, it also has restrictions. However, this restriction isn't a problem for me. Therefore, everyone in this camp, including this woman, has become my bargaining chip. If you don't wish for all of them to turn into fireworks, follow me obediently, Jack said. Why don't you just plant a curse on me? Wouldn't that be more convenient? Zhou Wen asked again. Such a top-notch ingredient naturally can't be contaminated at all. Otherwise, it would be a huge waste. Before I make you into a delicacy, I won't let you suffer any damage. As Jack spoke, he saw Qin Wufu rush over with a group of epic officers. With such a strange explosion at the encampment, Qin Wufu immediately thought that something had happened to Zhou Wen. If a dimensional creature from Chess Mountain had rushed out, it wouldn't have remained silent. He could tell at a glance that it was a life blast. Governor Qin, don't come over, Zhou Wen said to Qin Wufu. If it was really as Jack had said, that everyone had been planted with a life blast, then Qin Wufu and the epic officers were terrifying bombs. An epic life energy explosion wasn't at the level of those soldiers. The entire encampment would probably be flattened instantly. Zhou Wen didn't want to be blasted to death. He's from a bureau? Qin Wufu stopped and looked at Zhou Wen and Jack before looking at Lu Su, who was sitting on the ground. Finally, his gaze landed on Jack. Although he could only see Jack's back, He was certain that this person was from the Bureau. Although he was wearing a military uniform, he didn't have the bearing of a soldier. Chapter 426. Long time no see, Qin Wufu. Jack turned around and looked at Qin Wufu. When Qin Wufu saw Jack's face clearly, he was immediately alarmed. Impossible. Jack, how did you come out? Back then, Qin Wufu had participated in the operation to capture Jack. Many of his comrades in the Federation had participated in the operation with him. Back then, Qin Wufu was still in his prime. He had joined a group of epic experts in the Federation to capture the murderous maniac, Jack. Back then, he didn't have any fear. He only had the passion to eliminate evil for the people. However, as the operation progressed, more and more of his companions were silently killed by Jack using various means. Furthermore, they had only seen Jack a few times. This made Qin Wufu realize that Jack was a terrifying devil, a cunning fox, and a sinister venomous snake. He had the qualities that all evil people needed. He was a natural devil. There was a scar on Qin Wufu's back that spanned across his entire back. It was left behind from the battle back then. If not for his extraordinary life providence, he would have died in that battle. Jack's name immediately made the expressions of some middle-aged soldiers change drastically. Murderous maniac, Jack, was a name their parents often used to scare them when they were young. If they made a mistake or kept being vexed, their parents would say that the murderous maniac, Jack, was coming to take them away and eat them. It was a childhood trauma. Even though they had already grown into epic existences, they still subconsciously felt fear when they heard this name. An epic officer who was 27 or 28 years old had clearly never heard of Jack's name. He might have heard of him, but he didn't have a deep impression of him. After all, Jack had already been captured when he was born. No matter who you are, you can't do whatever you want here, the young epic officer said coldly. He boasted that he was a genius. He had advanced to the epic stage at the age of 27 or 28. He wasn't much inferior to the geniuses of the six families. Unfortunately, he didn't know how terrifying the person in front of him was. He had also underestimated what kind of existence a person who could leave a demonic name in the history of the Federation was. Jack didn't even look at him. All he did was snap his fingers. Boom! The young officer's body exploded, and the terrifying shockwave caused the nearby houses to collapse. Although the officers reacted very quickly, they were too close. Many officers were injured, and the surroundings were immediately in a mess. From now on, all of you shut up. I don't have time to waste on trash like you. Whoever dares to spout nonsense will end up like this, Jacker said coldly. A hot-tempered officer was about to rush at Jack, but he was stopped by Qin Wufu. Jacker, what are you trying to do? Qin Wufu stared at Jacker and asked. I only want him. Jack pointed at Zhou and said, Follow me now. If you dare say no, I'll turn everyone here into fireworks as a celebration before I enjoy the delicacies. Zhou, listen to me. Leave this place immediately. Leave this place to me. Qin Wufu stared at Jacker as his body shimmered with light. A suit of armor appeared on his body. The other officers and soldiers also summoned their companion beasts, ready to fight at any moment. From the looks of it, you still don't know what's going on. Then, I'll wake you up, Jacker said as he raised his hand to snap his fingers. Jacker, wait a moment, Zhou said. Jack stopped and looked at Zhou with interest. Why? Have you thought it through? Zhou nodded and said, I've thought it through. I'll go with you. Zhou didn't agree to go with Jacker because of Qin Wufu and company. He wasn't afraid of Jacker to begin with. Furthermore, he had to find Jacker's true body and completely get rid of him. Even if he attacked now and killed Jacker in front of him, he didn't know if this was Jacker's second puppet avatar. Zhou, you can't do that. Leave this place immediately, Qin Wufu shouted. Governor Qin, Jacker has planted a life blast in the entire military camp. As the commander-in-chief of Chess Mountain, do you want everyone to die with me? Zhou only wanted to leave as soon as possible. He didn't want to waste any more time. Everyone's expressions changed drastically when they heard this. If everyone had been planted with a life blast, wouldn't they explode like the young officer from before? That's impossible. Life blast needs contact to be released. We have never seen him before, Qin Wufu said with a change in expression. You should have seen it before, right? Jacker pointed at the cat at his feet. Everyone looked at the cat, and their expressions changed. This was because they had indeed seen the cat before, but they had accidentally seen it. However, when they paid attention again, they didn't see it again. They thought they were seeing things. Now, they realized that something was amiss. Furthermore, the young officer's self-destruction had chilled their hearts. Do you want me to prove it to you? Jacker said coldly. There's no need. I'll go with you. Zhou Wen wanted to quickly escape the current situation. He had to find Jacker's true body as soon as possible. Such a dangerous fellow was still at odds with him. No matter what, he couldn't allow him to continue living. This time, it was a soldier who had nothing to do with him. It was hard to guarantee that it wouldn't be his family and friends next time. Zhou Wen. Qin Wufu looked at Zhou Wen with a strange expression. Governor, please remember your responsibility. You don't have to protect me alone, but the millions of ordinary citizens behind you. Zhou Wen only wanted to leave with Jacker as soon as possible. If Qin Wufu stopped him, he would become an obstacle. All he could do was accuse Qin Wufu of something so that he wouldn't have the determination to fight to the death. However, when Qin Wufu, Lu Su, and the other officers and soldiers heard this, it had a completely different meaning. Zhou Wen's image immediately rose in their hearts. He was like a saint who had sacrificed himself to save the common people. Unbeknownst to them, Zhou Wen wished he could stay as far away from them as possible. No one wanted to be with a bunch of bombs that could explode at any moment. Let's go. Jacker turned around and walked towards the encampment's entrance. Zhou Wen followed behind him without hesitation. Qin Wufu opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything in the end. All he did was salute Zhou Wen. All the officers and soldiers saluted Zhou Wen and watched him and Jacker leave the camp. Chapter 427. I've already followed you out. Can I remove the life blast on them? Zhou Wen said to Jack after he left the encampment with him. Put this on. Jack took out a strange chain and handed it to Zhou Wen. What's this? Zhou Wen looked at it and felt that it was like a shackle, but it was much thinner. It wasn't as simple as locking his limbs. This is an essence trapping lock invented by the Bureau. It's made of essence gold. After wearing it, it can lock up 26 spots that might be one sea of energy. It includes almost all the possible locations of the sea of energy formed by various primordial energy arts. Wearing this, even immortals can't use their primordial energy. I was locked up by this for 28 years. However, this is only a simple version. Mine is more complicated, so it's inconvenient to get it. I specially asked the Bureau for it and prepared it for you, Jack said. Zhou Wen glanced at the essence trapping lock and frowned. You're asking me to commit suicide. Of course, you can also choose to watch a fireworks banquet. Jack pointed in the direction of the encampment. All right, I'll wear it. Zhou Wen pretended to be in a difficult position, but he was sneering inwardly. This item might be useful to others, allowing them to lock up their primordial energy sea. But Zhou Wen didn't have a primordial energy sea at all. If he insisted on a primordial energy sea, his entire body was a primordial energy sea. Unless his body was directly destroyed, it was impossible to destroy his primordial energy sea. This was what made the Lost Immortal Sutra different. Zhou Wen wearing the essence trapping lock was no different from not wearing it. After receiving the essence trapping lock, Zhou Wen put it on. He saw the chains wrap around his body like a corset. In some special spots, there were metal needles that stabbed into his body. There were a total of 26 of them, targeting 26 spots that could be primordial energy seas. Even the top experts in the Federation would no longer be able to use the power of their primordial energy if they were locked up by the essence trapping lock. Without primordial energy circulating, they couldn't use primordial energy arts or summon companion beasts. Although summoning a companion beast didn't require much primordial energy, without any primordial energy, he couldn't activate the tattoo formed by the companion beast, nor could he summon a companion beast. You are very strong, but unfortunately, you are bound by the so-called morals of the secular world. You are foolish enough to sacrifice yourself for others. This is the only aspect in which you are not strong enough, and also the only aspect that disappoints me. I originally thought that under my coercion, your true self would be stimulated and you would abandon that trash to release your true self, truly pushing your spirit and body to the extreme. I never expected you to be so thoroughly brainwashed by those foolish ethics. How disappointing. Seeing Zhou, when put on the primordial trapping lock, Jacker wasn't happy. Instead, he revealed a disappointed expression. Isn't this what you want? Zhou when said coldly at Jacker. Of course not. I've said it before. I want to see the moment when your body and mind are at their peak. Only then will you be the best and most irreplaceable ingredient in the world. Unfortunately, your mind is too weak. It's so stupid that it's greatly reducing your deliciousness, Jacker said. Zhou seemed to be amused as he stared at Jacker and said, You are so particular even when doing evil. Should I say that you are an artist among evildoers? Or should I say that you are a bastard? It doesn't matter. I'm me. My pursuit doesn't need anyone to understand. Jacker glanced at Zhou and said, If I eat you now, it will be a waste of delicacies. However, there's no rush. I will soon push your mind to its limits. What are you trying to do? Zhou expression changed slightly. Do you feel it? Your mind is already beginning to stir. Jacker looked in the direction of the encampment and continued, Now, get rid of those foolish trash so that they can no longer be an obstacle to your mind. It will allow you to truly find yourself. Are you crazy? Zhou immediately understood that Jacker still wanted to kill the people in the encampment to force and stimulate his mind. I'm only helping you find your true self. Jacker's eyes were fervent. You're a lunatic yourself, and now you want to turn me into a lunatic? Zhou stared at Jacker expressionlessly. He wasn't angry, but he was trying to determine if the Jacker in front of him was an avatar or his main body. If being a lunatic can bring happiness, why not go crazy once? Jacker said indifferently as he summoned the cursed cat demon. You said that you used the cat demon's curse to plant life blast on everyone. It's actually fake, right? Zhou said to him. Why do you say that? Jacker stopped and asked with interest. According to what I know, curses have all kinds of restrictions. Cursing people requires a medium, and it's even more difficult to add life blast to a curse. The conditions should be even harsher. Even the curse powers of a mythical companion beast shouldn't be so strong that it can be cursed without a medium, right? Jacker nodded and said, You're right. I really can't curse everyone. I only curse something in the military camp. Everyone who came into contact with that thing would be passively infected with the curse and be planted with life blast. It shouldn't be that simple. It's impossible for such a passive infection curse to spread on a large scale, Zhou said with certainty. Oh, then tell me, how did I infect them with the curse? Jack stopped what he was doing and asked Zhou with great interest. You have detonated a soldier and an officer, so such a thing is definitely something that soldiers and officers can touch. Just touching it isn't enough. A special ritual or medium is needed to infect them with the curse. Previously, I said that they were all planted with life blast. You once let them see the cursed cat demon and made them think that they were cursed by the cursed cat demon. In fact, at that time, you had already exposed the fact that you didn't curse everyone, Zhou said. Continue, Jacker said with a smile. In a military camp, there's only one thing that can meet the criteria mentioned above, and that is the signature book when you hand over your post. You put a curse on the signature book, and all the officers and soldiers who have signed their names on it have completed the ceremony, so they were cursed. You said that you didn't put a curse on me because you didn't want me to be hurt, but in fact, it was because I didn't write my name on the signature book, so you couldn't put a curse on me. You're indeed very smart. You're almost right. However, even if your name is on the signature, I won't let you be tainted by the curse, Jacker said. Chapter 428. From the looks of it, I guessed right. The current, you should be your true body. I never expected you to be so bold as to enter the military camp with your true body. If you had really detonated everyone back then, I'm afraid you wouldn't have been able to escape, right? Zhou praised Jack. You even guessed that? How did you guess it? Jacker was somewhat surprised as he asked Zhou. I didn't know in the past, but I'm sure now, Zhou said. Jack was taken aback before he laughed. Interesting. You were really interesting. What a pity that a smart person like you sacrifice yourself for that trash. However, it's fortunate that this is the case. Otherwise, with your abilities and thoughts, it would have been very difficult for me to capture you. You're right. This is my true body. Even I wouldn't be able to summon a mythical companion beast if I didn't go with my true body. Naturally, I wouldn't be able to complete those means. Everyone thinks that I'm a despicable person who only knows how to hide in the dark. Everyone thinks that I won't take the risk with my true body, but I did. Furthermore, I came out unscathed. Isn't that interesting? Jack was somewhat smug. You are indeed a bold and meticulous devil. If a person like you lives in this world, I'm afraid many people won't be able to eat or sleep in peace, right? Zhou sighed. Others aren't in my consideration, but you should be happy. Although you are dead, I won't let off those who want to capture you. I'll destroy the entire bureau as revenge for you, Jack said. I've been poor since I was young, so I've developed a bad habit. I like to do my own things. I don't know how to enjoy life, nor do I enjoy the services of others. Therefore, it's best I take revenge myself, Zhou said. You're putting me in a difficult position. I'm already famished. I wish I could immediately devour a delicacy like you. I really can't wait that long, Jack said as he licked his short lips. That's why I have to kill you first, Zhou said as he stared at Jack. Unfortunately, you have already put on the primordial trapping lock. There's no chance. Jack was clearly very confident in the primordial trapping lock. After all, it was something that had locked him up for 28 years. He had tried all sorts of methods, but he had failed to escape it. Really, Zhou exerted his strength as the primordial trapping lock that bound him like a shackle instantly shattered, turning into fragments that scattered everywhere. Jack's expression changed drastically. He wanted to snap his fingers and kill all the cursed people that deal Zhou a mental blow. But just as he raised his hand, he saw a flash of light from a knife. It was incredibly fast and directly cut off his hand. The knife did not stop and continued to slash at Jacker's body. As Zhou had put on the primordial trapping lock, Jacker's mental state had dropped too low. He was just too close to Zhou, and Zhou was just too fast. There weren't many people at the epic stage faster than him. Jacker wasn't as fast as Zhou Saber. Jacker suddenly transformed into a shadow and fled, but the bamboo blade in Zhou's hand was even faster. It slashed at the black shadow. Blood splattered as a tiger-shaped companion beast was sliced into two by Zhou's saber. As for the tiger-shaped companion beast's corpse and blood, it suddenly exploded. The explosive force was much more terrifying than the full-powered strike of an epic creature. Clearly, the tiger-shaped companion beast was at the epic stage. Die! Jacker's figure fled to another spot. And in his original spot, more than 10 epic companion beasts appeared at the same time and were detonated by Jacker. Within a radius of a few hundred meters, a terrifying force exploded, forming a huge blast of light that soared into the sky. It could be seen from dozens of kilometers away. Inside the encampment, Qin Wufu and company saw the terrifying blast of light and felt the ground shake. Their expressions immediately turned ugly. Something might have happened to Zhou. Let's go take a look. Qin Wufu immediately led his men in the direction of the blast of light. That was where Zhou had been taken by Jacker. And that terrifying burst of power wasn't something that could be achieved at the epic stage. Zhou definitely couldn't produce such a powerful force, so there was only one possibility left. It was Jacker who had unleashed his strength. Lu Su also rushed in the direction of the blast of light with everyone. She was extremely sad. She still remembered that when Zhou said that he didn't want to implicate the soldiers, she thought that he was afraid of death. However, in order to protect their lives, Zhou had chosen to leave with a homicidal maniac like Jacker. His outcome was obvious. Despite knowing that hell was right in front of him, a youth who was still in school had bravely chosen to step into hell for the sake of true soldiers like them. This made Lu Su feel ashamed and touched. "Zhou, don't die." This was Lu Su's prayer, as well as the thoughts of many Chess Mountain soldiers and officers. At the moment Zhou Wen left with Jacker for them, Zhou Wen was no longer just an ordinary name in their hearts. Jacker stared intently at the spot where the blast of light had occurred. He felt extremely conflicted. He didn't wish for Zhou Wen to die just like that. From his point of view, it was a waste of delicacies. However, at that instant, he really felt that his life was under serious threat. He subconsciously used all his strength. Compared to delicacies, his life was more important. Jacker stared intently at the spot where the blast of light had occurred. Although more than 10 epic creatures had self-destructed at the same spot, the power was enough to kill any epic creature. Jacker was still worried. He couldn't feel at ease as long as he didn't see Zhou Wen's corpse. Boom! A figure rushed out from the explosion of light, radiating light and heat in midair like a sun. He held a large sword in his hand, and he slashed down from midair. The sword light was like a wheel of light from the sun as it slashed down. The light was unimaginable, and it was unimaginably domineering. Is this fellow a monster? More than 10 epic companion beasts self-destructed at the same time, but they didn't kill him? Jacker was alarmed, but his eyes burned with fervor. At that moment, he no longer wished to escape. Now, the thought of eating Zhou Wen burned even more intensely, almost devouring him. With a wave of his hand, the cursed cat demon transformed into a ring and appeared on his finger. With the ring on, Jacker didn't escape. Instead, he punched at Zhou Wen's sword beam. This was clearly not Jacker's style, but Zhou Wen's sword beam slashed forward without any hesitation. Crack! The cat demon ring on Jacker's finger and one of his arms were severed at the same time. Jacker was sent flying, but he had a crazy smile on his face. Blood curse. Life exchange. A sanguine glow rose from Jacker's body, transforming into blood-colored incantation patterns. His life soul, Blood Hex Clown, appeared on Zhou Wen's body. Immediately, Zhou Wen's body was enveloped by the sanguine light as he fell from the sky. Let's see whose life is tougher. Jacker's long hair fluttered as the blood curse rose from his body. He was about to activate his curse. Chapter 429. Just as Jacker was about to unleash the curse, a purple beam of light slashed across his back. Jacker's actions froze as his raised hand stopped in midair. A head flew into the air with a spray of blood. Not far behind Jacker, there was a little girl in purple armor who looked like a doll. She held a purple copper scabbard and stood there with a cold expression. Plop! Jacker's corpse collapsed, and the ancient sword returned to the scabbard in demonic neonate's arms. However, Zhou Wen didn't dare be careless. He stared intently at Jacker's corpse, afraid that it would turn into a doll. Thankfully, what he was worried about didn't happen. Jacker's corpse didn't turn into a doll. Instead, his mysterious phone vibrated. Zhou Wen took out his phone, and the dead man tree automatically appeared on the screen. He pointed the phone at Jacker's corpse, and his corpse and blood vanished. The dissipating blood hex clown also transformed into a red stream of light that was sucked into the phone. A tender shoot appeared on the crown of the dead man tree. When Qin Wufu rushed over with his men, he only saw a huge crater that was a few hundred meters in diameter. Zhou Wen was standing in the crater, but there was no sign of Jacker. Zhou Wen, are you all right? Where's Jacker? Zhou Su asked Zhou Wen in surprise. He probably no longer exists in this world, Zhou Wen said casually as he placed his phone in his pocket. Qin Wufu, Lu Su, and the epic officers were alarmed. The meaning behind Zhou Wen's words was very obvious, but they found it unbelievable. However, the truth was right in front of them. Even Qin Wufu would find it difficult to complete such an intense battle and explosive power. In such a battle, it was naturally either one of them dying. Since Zhou Wen was able to stand here unscathed, Jacker's outcome was obvious. Looking at Zhou when standing in the crater, Lu Su and company were shocked. They still found it unbelievable that a notorious murderer like Jacker would be killed by a university student like Zhou Wen. Even if they didn't know how powerful Jacker was in the past, Jacker had barged into the military camp alone and killed so many soldiers and officers while chatting. Yet, he had left them helpless. They had already witnessed his ferocity. For such a ferocious person to be killed by a student like Jacker, it was indeed unacceptable. After returning to the encampment, Lu Su strongly requested to check Zhou Wen's identity, only to realize that he wasn't injured. Zhou Wen's deeds became a legend in the Chess Mountain encampment. The soldiers discussed Zhou Wen's deeds, his bravery, his strength, and his superb medical skills. In the Chess Mountain encampment, Zhou Wen had become synonymous with omnipotence. He was respected by many soldiers and officers. Even when Qin Wufu reported to Tianzhua, he had used extremely exaggerated praise. As a result, Tianzhua's expression turned rather odd when he heard his report. Overseer, it's too much of a waste for such a talent to stay on campus to study. Please let Zhou Wen stay in Chess Mountain. I hope he can become the team leader of the Special Operations Team. Qin Wufu directly expressed his request through the video call. Do you think that with his age and qualifications, those people will be convinced by him being the team leader of the Special Operations Team? And Tianzhua asked, Don't worry about this, Overseer. I've already asked for their opinions. Their opinions are unanimous. Other than Zhou Wen, they won't accept anyone else as team leader, Qin Wufu immediately said. And Tianzhua's expression turned even odder. After some thought, he said, I can't make the decision on this matter. His surname is Zhou, not An. I don't care about his matters. Besides, I'm afraid our Empress Dowager won't agree to your suggestion. Qin Wufu sighed when he heard that. That's true. Madame Lan probably won't let him take the risk, but it's too much of a waste for such a talent to stay on campus. As long as he trains for a few more years, he will definitely be able to guard a region in the future. And Sheng stood by the side in all seriousness, but for some reason, Tianzhua had the feeling that he was holding back his laughter. After Qin Wufu hung up, Tianzhua turned to glare at Sheng and said, What are you so happy about? Don't you know that a few of our soldiers died? Overseer, I'm not laughing, Sheng said seriously. Humph, does the Bureau really think that our family is dead? They actually dared to kill family soldiers in our family's military camp. They have to pay for this, Tianzhua said coldly. Overseer, how do you want them to pay? Sheng's eyes turned cold. It's time to move the nail you buried in the Bureau, Tianzhua said. Yes, I know what to do. Sheng's eyes lit up as he said excitedly. Then do it. Don't let them wait too long. Also, seal up the news of Zhou when killing Jack. Don't let the news spread to Chess Mountain, Tianzhua said. Even if it gets out, I'm afraid no one will believe that Jack was killed by young Master Wen, right? Sheng said. Jack naturally isn't someone a student can kill, Tianzhua said. Sheng immediately understood what Tianzhua meant. Overseer, don't worry. Jack's death has nothing to do with young Master Wen. He was killed by our family's troops. Did I say that? Tianzhua glared at him. No, Overseer has never said that. However, if others think that way, you can't stop them. After all, this matter has nothing to do with young Master Wen. They won't investigate him, Sheng said in all seriousness. What does it have to do with me? It's good that a fellow who only knows how to cause trouble is dead, Tianzhua said with a cold snort. Then, Overseer, do you mean to let him stay in Chess Mountain or let him return to school? Sheng asked. Don't ask me about him. Ask that person at home yourself, Tianzhua said without looking up. With Jack dead, Zhou Wen felt much more relaxed. However, his mind didn't stop. The Bureau had actually used someone like Jack to capture him. This was no different from taking his life. Although Zhou Wen's current strength wasn't enough to fight the Bureau head-on, wouldn't it mean that he was easily bullied if he didn't do anything? Wouldn't that allow the Bureau to send more people without any qualms? No, I have to think of a way. I have to let the Bureau know the pain. Although I can't fight the Bureau head-on, I don't necessarily have to. Just like Jack, perhaps I can do something. Zhou mind raced. Zhou didn't like to argue with others, much less form grudges with them. Even arguing with others was troublesome for him. However, he also had his bottom line and temper. Chapter 430. Zhou Wen's understanding of the Bureau was limited. Even if he had any ideas, he had nowhere to start. Therefore, Zhou Wen first called in Sheng and asked him for the Bureau's information. Young Master Wen, although Jack is very strong, he's been locked up for so many years. His strength alone is still much weaker than the Bureau's. And Sheng paused before saying, "Don't worry about this matter. The Yin family will definitely not let this matter rest. They will definitely make the Bureau pay the price. We are already taking action. I just want to understand my enemy better." Zhou Wen didn't explain further. "That's right. You will have to deal with the Bureau in the future. Indeed, you should have a detailed understanding of them. How about this? Wait a moment. I'll sort out the information and print a copy for you. I'll get someone to send it to you. It's not convenient to send some information to you online," and Sheng said. "All right." Zhou Wen wasn't in a hurry. He hadn't thought of what to do. "Did you really kill Jacker?" And Sheng asked curiously because Jacker's corpse wasn't found at the scene. There wasn't even a trace of blood. "I don't know how to put it. In theory, he should be dead," Zhou Wen said. "Does that mean there's still a chance of survival?" And Sheng asked. "There's no need to worry about Jacker," Zhou Wen said with certainty. The reason he didn't say that Jack was dead and only said that he had vanished from this world was because the companion eggs born from the dead man tree were different from ordinary companion eggs. They seemed to carry something from when they were alive and could be seen as their avatars. Zhou Wen was still looking forward to the companion beast that Jack had transformed into. If he could have abilities like Life Blast, it would be of great help to Zhou Wen in future battles. Although he could use spatial trajectories to achieve an effect similar to Life Blast, it was much less practical and not as flexible as Life Blast. Furthermore, Jacker was proficient in Shadow Escape and many curses. The only thing Zhou Wen wasn't sure about was how many skills Jacker could retain after transforming into a companion beast. DD. The sound of a message came from the phone. Zhou Wen took out his phone and saw that it was a message from the Arch. "I need these things. Buy them for me." The content of the message was a very long list. Zhou Wen took a look and realized that they were tools, instruments, and materials used in chemistry. "What do you want these things for?" Zhou Wen found it odd. He remembered that he hadn't introduced the Arch to any dramas related to chemistry. Master's answer was very simple. "Study chemistry?" Zhou Wen was alarmed as he thought for a moment and asked, "Have you watched the television dramas I introduced you to? It's too fake. It's boring. The fake things you humans have are useless. Only chemistry and some technological things are interesting. Quickly buy them for me. I want to see those things before sunset tomorrow." The Arch sent a message. "That's impossible. Many of the things you want need to be bought in big cities. Small cities don't have them at all. If you go to a big city, you might not be able to come back even after 10 days or half a month." Zhou Wen was telling the truth. In typical small cities, it was possible to buy a test cup or something, but it was impossible to buy those instruments. The Arch seemed to understand a lot about the Federation from the internet. She probably knew that Zhou Wen wasn't lying. After a moment of silence, she sent another message. "I want you to enter Chess Mountain once and take something from inside." The Arch, you know how weak I am. Aren't you trying to kill me by getting me to enter Chess Mountain? Zhou Wen immediately sent a message to reject her. "As long as you do as I say, nothing will happen. If you don't go, I'll make a wish to sever all your limbs," the Arch said. "What do you want me to do?" Zhou Wen frowned slightly. If the Arch wanted him to enter and break the seal, there would be a huge problem. "Get a treasure from inside. With that treasure, you could directly pass things to me through that treasure in the future. There's no need to run around anymore. It can save you a lot of time," the Arch said. "There's actually such a treasure? What is it?" Zhou Wen was very tempted when he heard that. From the current situation, the Arch didn't need him to do something. There was no reason for her to harm him now. If he could enter Chess Mountain to take a look at the situation inside, it would be helpful for him to clear the Chess Mountain dungeon in the future. Furthermore, There were treasures to take. The Tharch said, "It's nothing special. It's just a flower. However, that flower grows in Chess Mountain. You have to enter the belly of the mountain to bring the flower out. I can't help you take it out." "Is there really no danger?" Joan was still somewhat hesitant. Chess Mountain is indeed filled with danger, but as long as you do as I say, there won't be any danger unless you have a death wish and don't listen to my orders. The Tharch paused and said, "You don't have the right to choose. Appear in front of Chess Mountain in an hour. Otherwise, I got it. Sever all my limbs, right?" Joan added. Although he was somewhat unwilling, Joan still had to go. He had seen the Thearch's strength. Her wishability was too terrifying. Even Truth Listener's evil nullification couldn't resolve it. He really had no choice but to go. It's indeed wrong to take risks. I won't go to unfamiliar dimensional zones in the future no matter what. Joan packed his things and rushed to Chess Mountain. When he saw the flower again, the Tharch didn't say anything to him. She saw a crack in a mountain wall where the flower was rooted. It could probably allow a person to squeeze in sideways. "Go in." The Thearch's voice sounded from the flower. Joan gritted his teeth and crawled into the crack. He walked in sideways. The crack was narrow, so Joan could only slowly move in sideways. The deeper he went, the darker it became. Soon, he couldn't even see his fingers. Thankfully, Joan had Truth Listener. He could roughly know the situation nearby, so he didn't find it terrifying. After walking for a while, the crack finally widened. Joan realized that there was a huge space in the mountain's belly in front of him. Joan was in the middle of the mountain's belly, and at the bottom of the mountain's belly was a huge, strange building. Joan had also seen many ancient architectural drawings, but this was the first time he had seen such a building. The building had floors that resembled stairs, but it was extremely huge. Each floor was about the same size as a square. Only at the top was an ancient building. There was a 7-colored treasure light that shot into the sky from the ancient building, illuminating the entire mountain's belly. Chapter 431. 7-colored treasure light surged into the sky from the ancient building, but under the foundation, blood-like liquid seeped out. The underground river flowed through the foundation and brought the blood-like liquid out, immediately turning it into a blood-colored river. Now, Joan finally knew why the river outside had turned blood-colored. It was because of this strange building. After carefully sizing up the blood seeping out of the building's foundation, Joan's expression changed slightly. The bottom of the foundation was actually made up of countless skeletons and withered bones. It was as though countless skeletons had been poured into cement. Just looking at it made his scalp tingle. Climb down the mountain wall. Remember, don't leave the mountain wall. Don't fly. You have to have your feet on the ground. The Thearch's voice sounded, but this time it wasn't a real voice. Instead, it sounded in Joan's mind. "Don't tell me the flower you mentioned is in that ancient building." Joan tried whispering. The Tharch indeed heard him. "That's right. After you reach the bottom of the mountain wall, swim down the river. Remember not to take the stairs in front. Swim from the left. There's a hole there. You have to enter from there. Don't tell me there are any strange creatures in the river." Joan looked at the blood-colored river below the ancient building and felt uneasy. "Of course. You haven't used that bone flute, right? When you enter the water, use your teeth to bite the bone flute and swim forward. No matter what you see or feel, don't panic or speak. Just follow the path I point out and swim forward. What else do I need to take note of? Can you finish it all at once?" Joan said gloomily. "There's nothing else. You can go down now," the Tharch said straightforwardly. Joan took out the bone flute and bit it with his teeth. Then, he climbed down with his hands and feet. Outside, although the river was blood-colored, it was only the color. There wasn't the smell of blood. However, it was different here. The more Joan climbed down, the stronger the smell of blood became. It was unbearable. When he reached the bottom, the smell of blood almost made him want to vomit. Looking at the river that looked like real blood and the blood-seeping skeleton foundation in the distance, Joan gritted his teeth and jumped into the water. His poison resistance was high enough, and he had been injected with Dr. Darkness's venom several times. He wasn't afraid of the poison in the river. Even so, Zhou felt his skin itch after entering the water. Although he had already put on the mutated stone chi armor, there were still some gaps in the armor. It couldn't stop the blood-like river water from seeping in. Thankfully, apart from feeling a little itchy, there was no other reaction. Zhou felt a lot more at ease as he sped up and swam towards the left side of the building. After barely squeezing in, there was a passageway behind him that was flooded by the river. Thankfully, there were no red seaweed-like things inside. Truth Listener could roughly hear the situation inside. Don't surface for now. Swim underwater according to my instructions. Now, you have to be careful. You have to stick close to the stone slab at the bottom. If those things outside discover you, you're dead. F***KU. Zhou had the urge to curse. However, at this point in time, he had no other choice. All he could do was carefully swim forward while sticking close to the stone slab at the bottom. The passageway below led in all directions. Zhou followed the Thearch's instructions and swam forward. At the same time, he remembered the path he had taken so that he could come again. He definitely wouldn't come again in person, but in-game, he still had to continue exploring this place. Thankfully, Zhou had learned the Nine Dragons art. The amount of time he could hold his breath underwater was much longer than the average epic. If it were an ordinary epic human, ignoring the poison in the water, they probably wouldn't be able to help but surface to take a breather after swimming underwater for such a long time. All right, there's a stone staircase ahead. I'll go up the stone staircase. After swimming for quite a while, he passed through many submerged passageways. Just as Zhou was about to suffocate, he finally heard the Thearch's voice telling him to leave the water. Zhou rushed out of the water along the stone steps and panted heavily. However, as he panted, he couldn't help but hold his breath when he saw the scene in front of him. At the end of the stone steps was a stone platform. On the stone platform was a small mountain of dimensional crystals that emitted a rainbow-colored glow. Chapter 432. He didn't use his phone to take a picture, but just from the terrifying fluctuations emitted by the crystals, he knew that they were definitely extraordinary. Circle around the treasure platform and walk to the back. The Thearch's voice sounded in his mind again. Can I take some of the crystals here back? If I need to buy anything in the future, I won't have to ask you for money again, Zhou asked as he swallowed his saliva. Even he couldn't help but feel his heart race when faced with the mountainous pile of high-level crystals. If you don't want your life, go ahead and take it. If you want your life, stay away from them. Don't touch them, the Thearch said. Petty, Zhou muttered. He circled around the mountainous pile of crystals and walked to the back of the pile. He discovered a strange creature lying on the pile of crystals. It was curled up as though it was sleeping. The creature was golden in color and looked like a pangolin, but it seemed somewhat different. What dimensional creature is that? Zhou asked as he looked at the pangolin lying on the pile of crystals. Since the Thearch didn't warn him to be careful, it was unlikely that there was any danger. In the words of you humans, it's a mythical creature. It's known as a guardian of wealth. It can devour any creature that is greedy for wealth, the Thearch said. Mythical creature. Why didn't you say so earlier? Zhou's expression changed slightly as he lowered his voice. As long as you don't touch those crystals greedily, it won't wake up. Why mention it? The Thearch said matter-of-factly. Zhou was secretly alarmed. If he hadn't listened to the Thearch and had greedily taken the crystals, he would have been in trouble. Behind a treasure platform was a stone staircase. Zhou walked down the stone stairs and came to a hall. He saw many strange beast-shaped stone sculptures in the hall. The stone sculptures were simple and imposing, but there was nothing special about them. However, in their mouths were egg-shaped objects of different colors and sizes. Those are companion eggs. Zhou looked at the 2 rows of stone sculptures on both sides of the hall. Each stone sculpture had a companion egg in its mouth. That's right. In the words of you humans, those are mythical companion eggs, the Thearch said. Mythical companion eggs? What kind of place is this? Why are there so many treasures? Zhou asked in surprise. There were at least more than 10 stone statues, and the mythical companion eggs in their mouths were terrifying. Haven't you been to school? Haven't you learned the history of the East District? The arch said disdainfully. What does this have to do with whether I've studied history? Zhou asked. Since you have studied history, you should be able to recognize Deer Terrace Pavilion when you see it. This is a unique building in the world, the arch said. Deer Terrace Pavilion. Is it the famous Deer Terrace Pavilion that the tyrant expended the country's resources and oppressed the people? Zhou's history was very bad. He had only read it for exams, but he had also heard of Deer Terrace Pavilion because it was just too famous. Back then, the tyrant had used the entire country's resources to build Deer Terrace Pavilion and hid countless rare treasures in it. He ate, drank, and had fun there, enjoying the riches of the mortal world. It made Zhou somewhat envious. That's right. This is the legendary Deer Terrace Pavilion of you humans. However, the purpose of Deer Terrace Pavilion isn't as simple as storing treasures, as you humans say. Then what's it used for? Zhou asked. The arch said with a strange laugh. You should have seen the movies about Deer Terrace Pavilion, right? There's a scene where the demoness invites immortals to descend to the mortal world and drink with the tyrant, right? I've seen it, but those aren't immortals. They are all demons that the demoness invited, Zhou said after some thought. Although that plot isn't very believable, it's a little related. The purpose of Deer Terrace Pavilion is related to dimensional creatures. It can also be considered a demon invitation, the arch said indifferently. Can these companion eggs be taken away? Zhou asked as he stared at the companion eggs. These were all mythical companion eggs. Any one of them could be sold for an astronomical price. Even if he didn't sell them, he could use them himself. What do you think? The arch asked. Forget it if you can't take it, Zhou said helplessly. Then why aren't you leaving? There's a pot of flowers in the right corner of the hall. That's what you want to take, the arch urged. Zhou searched according to the location the arch had mentioned and indeed saw a pot of flowers in the corner. It looked very inconspicuous. It was a gray clay pot with a flower planted inside. It lazily grew 2 leaves and a flower. The flower looked like a morning glory. It drooped listlessly as though it was malnourished and about to wither. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you moving it away? The arch urged again. Zhou had no choice but to move the flower pot. He wasn't in a good mood. He had seen so many high-level crystals and mythical companion beasts, but he could only move this flower out. The arch wasn't easy coming here. Do you think there's anything else for me to take out? I don't want to make another trip, Zhou asked, unwilling to give up. Everything in Deer Terrace Pavilion is guarded by dimensional creatures. If you have the ability, go ahead and take it. You can take as much as you want. I won't stop you, the arch said disdainfully. Upon hearing that, Zhou dispelled the thought of taking anything else. As he walked back with the flower pot, he asked, What's the use of this flower? Don't underestimate it. This void flower has the ability to teleport. In the future, when you buy something, as long as you put the item into the flower, you can teleport it to me. It's just a fixed-point teleportation device. Zhou was immediately disappointed. You don't have to be disappointed. In the future, if I have anything to give you, I can also teleport it to you. It's much more convenient than your human phones. It's probably about the same as the quantum teleportation device that you humans are researching, the arch said after some thought. Zhou forced a smile. He could only hope that he could obtain something good from the arch in the future. Otherwise, his trip would have been for nothing. Apart from a flower pot, he wouldn't have gained anything. Zhou sized up his surroundings indignantly. When he saw the portrait of a demonic nine-tailed fox carved on the wall in front of the hall, he couldn't help but size it up and say, Is this the true form of the legendary demoness? That's right. If I were you, I wouldn't continue looking at her, the arch said coldly. Why? Just as Zhou asked, he felt his lost immortal sutra react. The circulation speed began to slow down. Almost at the same time, Zhou saw an evil glint appear in the nine-tailed fox's eyes. Chapter 433. Why aren't you closing your eyes? Do you want to become a demon by looking at the demon god catalog as a human? The arch shouted coldly. However, Joan didn't retract his gaze because of the Thearch's reprimand. He continued staring at the nine-tailed fox symbol on the stone wall. The lost immortal sutra in his body automatically circulated like before. This feeling was all too familiar to Joan. It was the same feeling when he learned the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra and other essence energy arts. As Joan watched, the nine-tailed fox statue changed into a strange black tiger. Not long after, it transformed into a winged ox. Then, Joan saw the stone statues on the stone wall constantly change. Many creature statues that Joan had never heard of appeared. Stop looking. It doesn't matter if you have a death wish, but who will buy my things? The arch was extremely anxious. Although she could also talk to others online, it wasn't easy to trick them into coming to Chess Mountain. Probably no one would dare to come. Even if someone dared to come, there would be troops stationed outside. Outsiders wouldn't be able to approach Chess Mountain. Taking a step back, even if one could approach Chess Mountain, it wouldn't be easy to find someone who could enter Chess Mountain without dying. After the arch went online, she realized that humans were much weaker than she had imagined. Someone like Joan was already considered a top-notch combat force among humans. Joan ignored the arch and kept staring at the stone wall. There were thousands of demon beast symbols on the stone wall. Joan only felt that the demon beasts had their own charms and temperaments, but he couldn't see anything special about them. However, the lost immortal sutra's circulation became slower and slower. When Joan couldn't remember how many demon beast stone statues he had seen, the lost immortal sutra finally stopped circulating. In the next second, the lost immortal sutra circulated crazily. However, the path and mode were completely different from before. It was a brand new essence energy art. This essence energy art was extremely demonic, giving Joan a strange feeling. When he circulated the essence energy art, his flesh and blood trembled as though they were letting out a dragon's roar. His tendons and bones sounded like the roars of tigers and wolves. His hair stood up like a hedgehog, making him look like a dandelion. Impossible. How can a human gain basic mastery of the demon god catalog? That's impossible. In the cave, the arch widened her beautiful eyes in surprise, as though she had seen something extremely unbelievable. As Joan circulated the new primordial energy art, he also obtained some information in his mind, letting him know that this primordial energy art was called the Demon God Bloodline Catalog. However, Joan had only mastered the primordial energy art. He was still far from condensing a life providence. That's strange. You cultivated the Demon God Catalog, so why didn't you turn into a demon? Are you not human to begin with? After Joan retracted his gaze, he heard the Thearch's voice sound in his mind. I'm just casually looking around. Don't tell me I'll turn into a monster just like that. He hadn't really mastered the Demon God Bloodline Catalog. It was all simulated by the Lost Immortal Sutra, so he naturally didn't have the danger that the arch mentioned. The arch didn't say anything else as she urged Joan to leave dear Terra's pavilion quickly. Joan stored the flower pot into the chaos bead before following the path he had taken. All the way out of Chess Mountain, he only heaved a sigh of relief when he emerged from the rift. Go back first. Buy the things I need as soon as possible and teleport them to me through that void flower, the arch exhorted. After Joan returned to his dorm, he heaved a sigh of relief. He decided not to risk his life in unknown dimensional zones again. What method should I think of to deal with the Thearch's wish? Otherwise, it'll be really troublesome if I keep being requested by her to do this and that. After some thought, Joan couldn't think of a good solution. In the next few days, Joan went to a nearby city to buy some common chemicals and equipment. He then attempted to use the Void Flower to teleport them to her. The Void Flower was really useful. As long as he told the Morning Glory Flower to bloom, its flower would form a small spatial portal. All he needed to do was throw the item inside. The arch was temporarily appeased, but she still urged Joan to head to a big city as soon as possible to buy everything she needed. Although Zhou Wen agreed verbally, he wasn't in a hurry to return to school. He stayed in the military camp for a few more days. After infecting the soldiers with rashes, he injected them with poison, allowing them to have antibodies. They no longer feared the blood river, and their combat strength increased greatly. Now, the officers and soldiers would call Zhou Wen Dr. Zhou when they saw him. They didn't even need to use the word little. Clearly, they were very respectful to him. However, Zhou Wen wasn't used to it. He clearly didn't know any medical skills, so he felt odd every time the soldiers called him Dr. Zhou. The people in Sheng had sent finally arrived. They brought with them information from the bureau. Many of them were confidential documents, and Sheng repeatedly exhorted Zhou Wen to destroy them immediately after reading them. He couldn't let anyone else see them. Zhou Wen carefully studied the thick stack of documents. There was a detailed description of the bureau. It was broken down to every department and every position. It was very clear. After reading it, Zhou Wen realized that the authority of the bureau was really huge. It was almost the same as the cotton uniform guards in ancient times. However, the information also mentioned many of the achievements of the bureau. Many devils that had harmed a region had been captured by the bureau. There had been many sacrifices. When the bureau was first established, it was to target the unbridled devils, as well as the Federation officials and local wealthy families who had done all sorts of evil deeds in secret. However, with the change of times, the authority increased, but there were no restrictions. The bureau gradually changed. Now, the bureau had a total of 15 branches. They were stationed in 15 important cities in the Federation and were in charge of intelligence investigations and supervision in the nearby areas. There were a total of 15 branch ministers like Xiao Siyuan. All of them were epic experts. Furthermore, they had their own strengths. They weren't something ordinary epic experts could compare with. That wasn't all. The headquarters of the bureau was filled with experts. There was no need to talk about Shin Yuqi. Although no one had seen him take action, the people who wanted to harm him had all disappeared from this world. At present, no one had heard of anyone who could touch him. Back when Jacker killed the son of the former bureau's director general, it nearly drove the former director general crazy. He went on a large scale to capture Jacker, but due to his extreme anger, he made a few irrational decisions, nearly crippling the bureau. Shin Yuqi had been ordered to capture Jacker in the face of danger and re-establish the authority of the bureau. At the same time, he had gathered a large number of talents. People like Xiao Siyuan were fresh blood that Shin Yuqi had dug out from the bottom. Apart from Shin Yuqi, the bureau also had 4 censors. Each of them was an extremely terrifying figure. There were also some other epic experts. After careful study, Zhou Wen realized that it was definitely not an easy task for him to touch the bureau. As for some small skirmishes, it didn't affect the bureau at all, nor would it hurt them. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.